Good evening and welcome to the October 27th, 2011 Goffstown Planning Board meeting. Just go around the room, starting with Brian, introduce ourselves. Brian?
I'm Brian Rose. I'm the Town Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Phil Devanza, Selectman.
Gayla Bruck, Recording Secretary.
Alan Yaton, Chair.
Tim Redmond, Vice Chair.
Carl Foley, alternate.
Welcome. So Carl, you will be voting on matters tonight if required. Okay. Now, to the matter at hand, we have an application by Simone to be appointed as an alternate to the planning board. Members of the board, do we have any questions of the applicant or the submitter? Seeing none, would somebody wish to make a motion to recommend acceptance of the application as an alternate to the planning board?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Carl, seconded by Phil. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The only thing that you have to do is
Be sworn in.
be sworn in. There are two people that can do that?
Any selectman can.
Any
do it.
selectman, but he has to have a document in hand. Is that correct?
We
And
have
or the town
pap-
clerk?
We have the paperwork in the folder, so that we can do it tonight if we'd like.
That's up to the board.
You need an easy button over here.
No, I need too much paper, is what it is. How deep is it in here?
I don't know. Patty, she's the queen of that folder.
I know, she keeps telling me to read it. No.
If it's not there, then I'm a liar.
No, it's probably, Simone,
Yes.
I'm going to break rules, and would you please sit up here? And you can join us this evening and just listen
Okay,
until I can find the right paperwork. How's that sound?
sounds good.
If you wish. You may not wish
Yes.
to stay.
Thank you. Yes, there it is.
Whoa,
We just found it.
Find it?
yes.
Look at that, I'm not a liar.
It's at the bottom of the pile. Now, I'm going to sign this while we move on. Brian, you have the floor to take the first item that you wish to present on the agenda this evening.
Okay, there's a couple of signs actually in the correspondence and action items. One's in the correspondence action items, and the other one is the first new business item. The first one, the one that's in the action items, is a Main Street sign permit application for Comics Plus. It's located at map 34, lot 86. Address is 3 Church Street. There's a memo that I wrote up in my packet to you that you all got, and then there's also a new memo that was just recently submitted by the Main Street design team. The design team's letter that came in the revised correspondence list, and that makes some recommendations. However, they do say that they don't oppose to the way that it's designed. They're just trying to make a few recommendations that they feel might make it better. One of those is that they feel that the sign would have greater impact if the smallest letters, if the categories of items in the smallest letters were removed. They say this would allow space for the store's name and the most important piece of information, which is the most important piece of information, to be larger than the 6 inches as shown. And then second, since the building is white, the team recommends a larger border to differentiate the white on white of the background of the sign and the background of the building. I guess it's kind of up to the board. My recommendation for the sign, was it that it have one condition, that that those letters that are the smallest letters at least be enlarged to 2 inches, which is the minimum size that the development regulations allows for sidewalk scale signs. So the board could approve it with that condition, or if they wanted to add other conditions such as recommendations by the Main Street Board, they could also take those into consideration. So I'll take it and turn it back to you.
Members of the board, does anybody have any comments, observations, or questions reference the sign application? Carl?
I would like to know if the applicant has received the recommendations that Main Street sent, and whether or not the applicant is in favor or of those recommendations or not.
The applicant is present. Can you introduce yourself and come up here and have a seat for a second? See if we can't conclude this.
Hi, my name's Scott Beals, and I'm the applicant for Free Church Street. I appreciate the input that the Main Street program has put in. I would not like the lettering removed. I will enlarge it, just for the fact that I have a comic shop and a sports shop, and if I don't have something with sports on there, people will not associate a comic book shop with that carrying sports cards. So I need as much definition as I can on the sign to help promote my business.
How about the border that they were talking about, like a more distinct border around the perimeter of the sign?
Yeah, I didn't see a need, but if you guys believe it, it will outline it more. I'm in favor for that too.
Phil?
Yeah, I don't think that we should be getting into content, what's on the sign, because I think that that's up to the person who signed it. They're paying for it, and I think that that reflects what either they want, or if they have a sign company design it, that's up to them. I don't think we should be editing content of the sign. As far as the size of the letters, it does need to meet, though, our regulations. And I think that the applicant's indicated that he would gladly do that. So I don't have a problem with the sign as it is.
Tim?
I concur with Phil. I don't think we need to tell these applicants what they're gonna put on their signs. I do concur that we should have them change those letters to 2 inches, which is the standard according to the regulations. As long as this sign meets the regulations, I don't think we have the right to tell them to enlarge the border or take words out. So my opinion would be to go with it the way it is and not go with the recommendations from the Main Street Committee.
Okay. John?
Yes, thank you. I would also agree with Tim and Phil on this. It's your business, it's your sign. Stand up and do what you think is right for your business, because you're the one that's gonna be suffering through the bad times if people can't read it or don't know what you're doing.
Right, thank you.
So I think you should have exactly what you'd like and comply with any regulations, if that's what there is, but you need to do what you need to do for your business to survive today.
Thank you.
Since this is not unusual, is any members of the public wishing to speak about references sign permit application? Simone?
No, it's not.
That's why, I said that so I
You're
could
gonna
ask
pick
her
on
if
me
she
now.
wanted to say anything, okay?
Right on the spot.
I would totally agree with this gentleman said. I'm sorry, I don't know your
John.
name. John, I'm Simone. I would definitely agree with that as well.
So I'll close public comment. Members of the board, what's our flavor here? Tim?
Make a motion to approve the sign as is, both of them, the large one and the other one that he wants put over the door. I believe it goes over the door. With the condition that he change the small letters to 2 inches from 1.5 inches to meet our criteria.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Carl. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes affirmative, carried unanimously. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Hope
I
to see you up
appreciate
there
your
soon.
time.
And good luck.
Make the
Good luck.
I'll get you a sign permit written up too, and then you can come in and pay for it.
Thank you.
Ryan, we're on the run. Can we try the conditional use permit for 680 Mass Road?
Yes. Mr. Chair, tonight there's a public hearing request for a proposal to replace an existing Wave gas station with new LED Sunoco gas station sign. And it's not the wording of the Sunoco gas station, but it's the number sign that's before you tonight for a conditional use permit. As many of you are aware, the zoning ordinance requires that any sign that's changed mechanically or electronically must come before the planning board for a conditional use permit. So that is the reason it's coming before you tonight. The location of this gas station is at 680 Mast Road. It's owned by Surratt's Corner Property Management, and the applicant is New Hampshire Signs. And I believe they have a representative here tonight to present their sign and their application. And I'll turn the time back over to the board.
Well, he's a voting member tonight.
I'll sign the copies.
Okay. I need two, items number 1 and 2. Need a motion from the floor. There's no regional impact, and the application is complete and ready for review.
So moved.
Moved by Phil. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Carl. Is there any discussion on this motion for no regional impact and the application is complete and ready for review? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'll open a public hearing. I wish to hear from the applicant or a representative, please. Please step forward, identify yourself, and you have the board's attention.
Thank you. My name is Rick Donlin. I work for New Hampshire Signs, and we are doing the signage at the location as it converts over from Wave to Sunoco. In the packet is this drawing, which shows the current sign on the left and the proposed sign with the LED panels on the right side of the page. I know that this isn't a variance hearing, but I did go through the variance 5 tests, if you will, and I prepared something, if I can just pass that out and
Certainly may.
read it. Just take me a couple minutes to do that.
Mr. Chair, also,
Right.
I failed to put it in my recommendation part, but part of the approval of a conditional use permit has those criteria. in
5
our zoning
criteria?
ordinance, Yeah,
Okay.
so the board would need to make a finding in order to approve the conditional use permit.
Okay.
That the applicant has met those conditional use permit criteria.
Okay.
Okay, number 1, granting the permit would not be contrary to the public interest because consumers are used to seeing LED price changers, both in Goffstown and across the country for that matter. 2 stations that are close to 680 Mast Road, Irving and Mobile, currently have LED price units, so the addition of LED price changers at 680 Mast is not breaking any new ground. Additionally, the LED pricing will make it easier, I feel, for passerbys to see the price. Number 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed because the LED sign will do nothing more than change the prices. It will not move or create an illusion of movement. And in fact, the LED unit that will go in there is not capable of sending any kind of a message, either text or graphics. It simply doesn't have that capability. If necessary, the pricing will be changed no more than once per 24 hours. Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice because the station at 680 Mast Road competes with other stations in the area that do not have LED price changers. Allowing the station that do have LED price changers. Allowing the station at 680 to utilize LED price changers will put them on an equal footing with their competitors. As a newly branded Sunoco station, the LED price changers will contribute to the success of the new owner. Number 4, the values of surrounding properties will not be diminished because the area along Mass Road is commercial in nature with a variety of lighted signs, including LEDs. To reiterate, the only use of the LEDs will be to change the prices. There will be no intermittent text or graphics. Number 5, demonstrate that literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship because, first point, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. LED price changers do exist in other gas stations in the area next to 680 Mast Road, and consumers are very used to seeing this type of sign in gas stations. Second point, the proposed use is a reasonable one because we're asking for LEDs to only change the price digits as other gas stations do. The addition of LEDs also eliminates the need to have employees change the manually changeable price panels, which is an onerous task, particularly on colder and, in that area in particular, windy days. This is just for your information, this is a picture of 2 of the stations in the area that currently have LED price changers.
Okay. Members of the board, do we have any questions of the applicant? Carl?
This Andre's Food Mart,
Yes, sir.
is that currently in the facility it is? Okay, I just didn't see it on this, the current sign.
It's not, it just moved in.
Okay.
Their sign is just not up
Okay.
yet, so it
Thank
will
you.
be.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just respond?
Yes.
I think, though, that the point that I was trying to make when I said that it was there is that it has traditionally had a food mart in it,
Okay,
location. It's just not been Andre's, it's been different ones.
okay.
John, do you have any questions?
I don't, I know the property well, and I think this looks pretty nice. It's a good improvement.
Tim?
I think it's actually an improvement, because we're going from a large set of numbers on the wave sign to smaller, more evenly spaced numbers. I think it'll look better.
Anybody have any problems with the colors? We've had color issues before. Anybody have any comment about the fact that it has more than one sign price category, which was a limitation on the other 2 signs?
What was that limitation, Alan?
That there'd only be one LED price, not
So
2.
So we are breaking ground.
Yes, we are. Yes, Phil?
No, I guess I'm a little confused, because currently the sign does have a price up there for diesel, and it does have a price for regular gas.
Yes?
So it's still gonna be regular and diesel.
But it's only one LED changer on the other signs, and this is 2 LED changers, so it is different.
Well, did the other ones request it and we deny it?
We requested one only.
And this one is a request for this?
Excuse me?
And this one is requesting what they presented
But
to
it
us.
says right here in the stuff, it is not breaking new ground, and it is actually breaking new ground.
Well, I don't think technically it's breaking. I think the point that the applicant was making was that the fact that it was LEDs are around in town, and there is a neighboring station that does have the LED. I think that was his point.
Well, are we prepared to allow the other stations to come back and add LEDs to their signs, if they're gonna keep pace with this one?
Sure.
Putting it out there.
Just a point of information, the zoning ordinance does not make any kind of limitation on the number of signs that can be LED or internally lit or anything like that. So, I mean, that should be a consideration the board would want to look at.
And this is, question or statement?
Yes, Phil? Yes.
John?
John?
And this is so much easier to change and to manage and to know, if you look, if you notice the diesel, there are no numbers in it because it's such a pain to probably put them up daily as things change. But these will be much easier to do from inside. I assume they would do it through their computer. or-
I don't have any problem with the fact that he'd like to put two up there, but we went round and round on one issue before. I just,
I-
open a Pandora's box here.
Within the lines of being legal and,
Yeah.
and within the ordinance, so
Okay.
Pandora's box is not big enough.
Tim?
Can you remember why we only allowed one LED changer on the other two signs?
I don't
try
remember
to
the
restrict the-
presentation of the argument, but I know that there was a question and a concern, and there was a limitation made. Because if you look at it, there's 4 price categories in most cases, and in most pumps. It's regular and da-da-da-da and diesel. There's actually 4. So, they could have 4 up there, as far as I'm concerned, but that wasn't the vote at the time. Just bringing it up, that's all. We can do anything we want. Yes, Tim?
How many of these other signs will be internally illuminated, other than probably the Sunoco sign?
They're all internally.
All-
They're all currently
Including
internal.
Andres and lowest prices and Sunel's?
Yes,
And what's the current lighting on this
those
sign?
are all internally illuminated.
So the same square footage of illumination
Yes, sir.
sign, it will remain?
Yes, sir.
So we're not upgrading that, okay.
And actually, the LED is probably a decrease of illumination output, at least, because the black face of it, and then also the LEDs are very low energy, and they don't put out a lot of light. They put out enough light to show the numbers, and that's it.
Well, that's debatable, Brian, because if you go down past Pro Landscape where that red sign is on the edge of the road, it's awful bright sometimes. It's almost so bright, it's almost distracting sometimes.
Brian, can you point me to the specific paragraph on conditional use permits, because the applicant has basically stated variance conditions, and I just want to make sure that the board understands the conditional use.
Section 15.4.1. Actually, the actual conditions are 15.4.1.4, 1 through 6.
So, for the members, board members,
See this whole one here?
On page 101 of the zoning ordinance, that helps.
It starts on 101 or starts at 100?
It's in the
starts
middle
on
of
page
101.
101 in the zoning ordinance.
With 15.4.1.4.1.
And we need those findings as part of a motion to either deny or approve.
And as a recommended condition of approval, my recommendation was that sign content shall not be changed more frequently than once in a 24-hour period.
Okay. I'm gonna open it up to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak in reference to this application? Seeing none, then I will close the public hearing. Board members, do we have any resolutions or any other questions that need to be solved before we move forward with a motion? Seeing none. Members of the board, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the sign with the condition that it be changed not more than once in 24 hours.
And subject to conditions for the conditional use permit, the
Correct.
findings as
As
stated in,
As
as stated in paragraphs 1 through 6. Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second that one.
Seconded by John. Any discussion on the motions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The lowest price on everything, is that, it doesn't matter, but is the lowest price on everything, does it belong to one of these, or is it?
You know, I'm not really sure. I know there's several different ventures in there between the parts place and the gas
bold-
station and the convenience store and,
It's a bold statement.
yeah. So I have no real problem with that.
We'll have to go find out.
One other little piece of housekeeping, the minutes from our last meeting. Members of the board. looking to,
I make a motion to approve as presented.
do I hear a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Phil. Any corrections or omissions that need to be taken care of? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion,
Abstain.
Carl is abstaining. Motion carries unanimously. Now, getting into these other areas of the program this evening, what's your pleasure, Brian? I'll let you kind of lead us through this.
Okay. We've got
Menagerie.
4 different things from the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission on the agenda tonight. I'm gonna rearrange the order a little bit, if we can, so that our friend Jillian can go home sooner than she would otherwise have to if she were to have to wait through the school impact fee and the groundwater protection plan. She's presenting the master plan update in regards to the energy chapter. She's got about a 10 to 15 minute presentation that she'd like to go through. I did copy the presentation that she made for you into small sheet slides, and so that you can kind of follow along with what she's presenting. And then we can have some discussion, and we're going our way after she's done.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Tim?
what are we doing with these tonight, Brian? Are we considering these, or what's going on with these tonight?
For the energy chapter, we're just making a presentation as to what basically the process will be going forward to get this chapter or study going. This is something that the board voted to do about a month ago, and so now I think they're gonna be presenting what they will be working on over the next few months. And then they'll come back to us with basically a study report or an energy chapter that we can adopt for our master plan, if we so desire. If that meets what we want to see for our master plan, then we can vote on it and adopt it. For the other methodology reports, there is some recommended action for tonight. I think we should, at least have the presentations made on them and kind of go through them. The schools one, we're not to the point where we need action tonight. We need some additional time for comment and revision to the report, but the other two have some recommended action for tonight, if possible, and that's it.
All right. This must have been that paper you had me sign a while ago, huh? There's a contract with
Yes,
this
that was
young
it.
lady?
That was
Okay.
it.
And there is no existing chapter in our master plan right now reference this subject, is that
No, there's
correct?
not.
So this would be a whole new chapter or whatever, or subchapter or whatever it comes out to be. Okay, you have the floor, Jillian.
Thank you. Jillian Harris from the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. And I've been working with Brian with the Energy Technical Assistance and Planning Program. And this is sort of another piece to what we've been doing for that. We'd like to start the process of developing an energy chapter for your master plan. And so I put together just a short presentation on what ETAP is and what the process of developing that chapter will be. The ETAP program is a 2-year federally funded program that's developed by the New Hampshire Office of Energy and Planning under the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant Program. The goals of the program are to advance the level of energy efficiency for all New Hampshire municipalities and to provide the tools needed to monitor energy performance. And also to provide energy efficiency technical assistance at no cost to municipalities and counties in New Hampshire.
Does that reflect just municipal facilities, or is this under the master plan going to apply to schools? Is it gonna apply to my business?
The master plan will be more broad. This program in particular focuses on the municipal buildings with the technical
I didn't get it then.
assistance.
Tim, there's
But
an
the energy
email on the
chapter
front.
will not just focus on municipal buildings.
Okay. So the goal is to look at what we have here and what the town owns, so that, would you also be assisting the school district in their applications?
There are some schools that have received assessments. I'll talk a little bit about what we've already done
Okay.
as part of the
I'm getting
program,
ahead of it,
but-
okay.
yeah.
You have the floor, excuse me.
But I'll get into that.
Okay.
That's Tim, I think he's missing his.
Excuse me for interrupting.
Sorry, Ron.
A little bit about how ETAP works. We conduct energy inventories of your municipal buildings, find out what your needs and priorities are regarding energy efficiency, provide technical assistance to municipalities based on those needs and priorities. And some of the technical assistance that's available through the program are energy inventories, building assessments, which we've already done in Goffstown, service procurement support, action plan creation, grant writing assistance, and the development of energy master plans and capital improvement plans for energy efficiency.
So there might become a category in our CIP program, which we also deal with in terms of making recommendations?
Yeah, that's definitely something that could come out of
Okay,
the work.
all right,
we do.
thank you.
The other piece to the ETAP program is the energy inventory tool. This is something that's being offered by one of the partners in the program, Peregrine Energy Group. And it's a way to, measure your energy use. You start a baseline, enter all your data in, you can see what your energy use is in your municipal buildings, track it over time. As you make improvements, you can see if those improvements are actually having an impact on your energy efficiency. So that's another piece to the ETAP program. I'm working with Brian and Derek Horn on that, if it's
Okay.
something that the town would like to do. For a little bit of background on enabling legislation, SB 422 in 2008 came out with RSA 674-2, which permits an energy section in the master plan that includes an analysis of energy and fuel resources, needs, scarcities, costs, and problems affecting the municipality, and a statement of policy on the conservation of energy. So energy chapters are a fairly new thing that communities are including in their master plans. Why do communities need an energy master plan? Some of the reasons include to set goals and development a statement of policy on the conservation of energy, to determine an energy baseline and set actions for achieving goals, to determine the responsible party for achieving those goals, and to determine when and how long the actions will take place. Also, the regulations must advance the goals stated in the master plan. So without a vision, you wouldn't want to adopt energy regulations. The components of the master plan would include an introduction, energy goals, existing conditions, planning roles, issues and concerns, new trends, recommendations, and an action plan. In the process that we proposed, we actually started in December 2010. We conducted some building assessments on Goffstown's municipal buildings, and there is a report available that came out of that.
Did you do the town hall?
Yes, that was included.
Gee, I'd love to get a copy of that report.
So obviously we'll provide that to you to review. This month, we're starting with the overview and plan startup. Next month or December, whatever works better, I'd like to schedule another workshop to develop some goals and objectives for the chapter. In January, we'll come back with a draft chapter and recommendations. February, a final draft for review, and also a public hearing and final revisions. And in the February to March timeframe, adoption of the new chapter. And then the last slide, I've just included some of the contacts from the program. Include David Priest and Jack Munn from my office, as well as myself. And then CLF Ventures is the program manager working with OEP. Eric Halter's the contact there. And then for Peregrine Energy Group, the company that's been doing the building assessments and some of the technical assistance, Steve Weissman is the contact overview of the process, and I can take any questions or comments that you might have.
John?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. How many towns that you know of have adopted the SB 422 and are actually showing success at it? And what does it cost them to initiate it? And what are their savings, and how long is it looking to be able to recover that type of expenditures?
I'm not sure the exact number of towns that have adopted energy chapters. It's not that many. I want to say in maybe the 20 to 30 range at this point.
Do you know, can you just give me one or two towns?
Temple has an energy chapter. Berlin, I believe, does. Those are some that have them. We're working with New Boston and Chester as well right now on theirs, as well as Auburn and Hooksett, in addition to Goffstown. So there are a number in the region who are developing them as well.
Okay.
But the ones that have been adopted are fairly new, I think from like the 2007 to 2008 range. So the levels of success would be hard to say that at this point.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Ask a question?
Sure you can.
As far as topics that are covered in the energy chapter, is that open for anything? I mean, can we address not just like town municipal buildings, but can we address energy more on a holistic level, and you know, how the town can look at other avenues to be saving energy as well? I mean,
Definitely, and that's what I would recommend as well, is not to just focus on your municipal buildings, which is a piece, but the broader, more general view is what the town would want to be looking at as well.
for like sustainability in the
Right,
entire
and
town.
different opportunities for implementing energy efficiency or energy efficient development, if that's something the town is interested in.
So maybe some like possible recommendations to change our development regulations that would encourage better energy development
Right.
as far as housing or commercial development, whatever.
Right. That's exactly.
You don't think that's impinging upon one's private rights?
Well, we can get into the specifics of the recommendations and
My
obviously-
understanding is there's plenty of regulations out there for energy conservation and applications in the building codes and legislated as of right now. Why do we need this? For other than municipal buildings? I'm putting you on the spot.
Obviously, we won't put recommendations in there that the board is not in favor of, but we will make suggestions and let you know what the benefits of doing some of those things would be. If you don't think that it would be beneficial to Goffstown, then it's not something that we would put in your chapter.
Tim?
I would have a question as to why we need to adopt any regulations to the master plan that reflect energy conservation. I'm certain that the Board of Selectmen and the departments are already well on the way to trying to conserve energy in town buildings. I don't know why we need to put it into our master plan.
Bill?
Well, I mean, following up on what Tim is saying, energy audits have been around for a long time. Public Service does them. They've been doing them for years.
Right.
Public Service also has programs where they do energy audits, and they also issue grants for upgrades following those audits. Several businesses in town have had those audits. Some of them have followed them, some of them haven't. We've had those energy audits here in Town Hall, the police station, the municipal buildings. We've been on a Heat Smart program for probably 10 or 12 years right now, which is a program with Public Service of New Hampshire that does provide quite a bit of energy conservation, especially during high usages. They can regulate the electricity that comes into the town hall. So, I mean, these are things that we have been on top of for quite a few years. So, I mean, I guess that's, along that thinking, I'm kind of thinking, I'm looking at what the goals, there's no specifics on the goals. They're kind of vague, so I don't quite understand what the purpose is beyond what we've already done. So,
I believe it can be a tool to encourage energy conservation and awareness in the master plan. But I don't like prescriptive guidelines that require people to do things. No.
and as a follow-up on that, if you notice that in a lot of the rooms here in Town Hall, there are sensors that the lights go out automatically. They are in the police station. We have them in other buildings, municipal buildings. And if you follow the budget that's going through this year in the police department, there is money in the budget to upgrade those because some of those aren't working. So we have been following
Okay.
along those lines.
Timothy?
I'd like to follow up on John's statement too. We have to provide funding for these projects if we're gonna even think about adopting them. If you're gonna wanna do energy upgrades, I won't put Ray on the spot, but the schools have been in performance upgrades for going on a 10-year program, and they have validated their expenses to put the money up front, because they're showing the savings on the back end. But you have to have the funding if you're gonna do any of these, and I don't know if the funding's gonna be made available for these projects. These are tough times, and once we put these into our master plan, then it's almost like an unfunded mandate. So I don't know that we should be putting these into our master plan.
Can I make a point to that, though? Because putting it in the master plan actually would be a benefit toward getting funding. A lot of times, if you're doing a grant application, they'll want to see some type of documentation that the town has specified goals in their master plan that reflect what they're asking for the grant money for. And so, if you have it in the master plan as a goal of the town, not just something that maybe the selectmen have been doing for the past 12 years or however many years we've been doing it, but if it's a stated goal of the town, then that'll be a stronger argument when they're looking at the grant application to be able to give us some funding to do the project that we want to do to get, the energy savings that we'd like to do. So I think that all by itself would be reason enough to move forward and get this, get some recommendations into our master plan.
And I'll follow that up, that we don't usually put the specific recommendations that come out of those reports into the master plan. We might say something like prioritize the recommendations that came out of the building assessment reports and decide what is and is not feasible for the town. So they would be broader recommendations. They wouldn't be, upgrade the boiler in this municipal building, or anything like that. It would just be something broad that says, take a look at them, consider them, and see if they're feasible for the town. And the goals as well that we establish are usually broad, saying something like, make the municipal buildings more energy efficient when possible, or something along those lines. So it's not something where you're mandating that these energy improvements take place. It's just something to consider.
But in terms of a chapter in the master plan, it's a resource to use in planning. It's not a requirement.
Right.
Okay, we need to understand that. What it does is just provide more information about the topic that's available to the board, the planning process. But at the same time, in applicants, when they say, are you aware of the master plan and its contents? They have to sign that on the application, saying that they've at least read it and are aware of the various paragraphs. That doesn't mean they have to comply with the master plan. They have to be aware of it, and we can apply certain things in the master plan in our planning and approval process. But we can't, I don't want it to be, don't think I'd want it to be prescriptive, saying you must, or you have to.
Yeah, no, I
I
agree.
don't think I think that's what the board is saying.
Yeah, and that's perfectly, that's what we're getting
Tim.
from a lot of towns.
I'd like to ask Phil, as a selectman for a long time now, have you ever received any grants, has the town ever received any grants for energy upgrades in your time on the board? That you can think of?
We may We may have, but they wouldn't be related to the topic, to the discussion that we're having right now about this. I mean, it might have been a grant for an upgrade of a boiler or something through a different program. The governors, there were several in the past, and they changed, like, as far as exactly what they are. Governor's Energy Grant was for a while where we did get grants through that. We got some for Grassmere doing the upgrades. But they really weren't from anything, you know, like this. It was from what we knew, what we needed, and through the assessments, as I said, that we've had from public service, because they identify your needs in the building, where you have deficiencies, and they give you a recommendation of upgrades.
So would your opinion be that if we had it in our master plan, the grants would be more readily available?
I couldn't say that they would be, and again, I couldn't say that they wouldn't be, but,
We can't even fund the roads right now. How are we gonna fund grants for energy improvements in municipal buildings? I'm with Alan. I think this is I think this just needs to be a broad stroke of a brush that says, you know, we'd like to see energy improvements in these buildings, but I don't think we can put anything specific in here.
I'm gonna take John first. John?
Knowing and understanding what SB 422 says and means, the only concern I have is that if the community is to adopt, do they do that through a warrant article? Is it done on the ballot? Is it done through the selectmen? Who adopts this policy? I mean, it's allowed by the RSA, but who adopts this policy? Does the town take this on and vote on this during the election? How is it adopted? And then once it's adopted, does it continuously get more intrusive? And does it continuously, you know, once something is in, you start finding out that you can receive maybe some grants, maybe something, and there's a lot of people that think that government being more intrusive in our lives because they give us more money is a good thing. And so we gotta be really careful before we include this.
Agreed, and that the process for amending the master plan is, Jillian has to finish her work. We have to reach some kind of consensus that we want to consider that to put it in the master plan. We have to go through a public hearing process before we can do so, and it's done by the planning board and signed by members of the board as an amended master plan. When and so, if it's just in the master plan, that's one thing. If it's in anything like the development regs of the zoning ordinance, that's a different issue. Development regs can be done on an as-needed basis whenever the board desires to amend their regulations without a town vote. Zoning changes require a town vote at town meeting. Any changes to the zoning ordinance. That's I think, the Reader's Digest version of that. So I still would encourage Jillian to complete the task and work with Brian and other people. I certainly understand what energy conservation is about, and it needs to be better publicized, and this is one way of doing that. And if it does allow the municipality to apply for competitive grants, then it's just like any other municipality. It's he who is first in line has the best opportunity. And so that's the way I look at it. And there are grants out there, and we do have the opportunity from time to time to write them. We don't, but the town does. I just don't want to see it impacting your commercial property or my commercial property, although we're encouraged to participate through the master plan with all these things and take advantage of them. I think that's what we have to encourage. Members of the board? Yeah, Tim.
I'd like to respectfully request that we move this forward and let Jillian continue doing her work, but at this time, leave the discussion.
Okay. And we would expect that you would be complete by the end of the year or the 1st of January? January 2012? Or what's your agenda?
I'd hope to have a draft in January. I was hoping to come back and have a broader discussion on the goals the next time that I came, so we can continue this discussion as
Okay.
well. what
Alright.
you'd like to see in the chapter.
I'd like to see things moved along, so I always ask, when can we see you again? So, January.
Hopefully November, December, whatever we can.
Okay.
schedule.
So I guess in between now and then, be thinking about what you'd like to see as goals of the town in the energy chapter. Is there anything that we can put out to them for
Yeah,
informational?
I'll send along some examples of different energy chapters that are out there and goals that other people have developed, so you can consider.
We need to have it well in advance, so that, we normally get our packages on Saturday or Friday for the following Thursday. So, we need to have it a few weeks in advance to give everybody an opportunity to read them, try to understand them before you have a presentation.
Okay.
Okay? And we thank you very much for taking the time to come over here tonight.
Thank you.
Watch out for the big snowflakes on the way home. I guess I'm back to you again, Brian. We're determining,
Back to number one under the public hearings with Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. We do have Ray Labor here from the school administrative unit 19. And so
Do
I
that one
think
first, then.
the school impact fee study update would be the appropriate next one to cover.
Okay.
Now,
this is a public hearing?
This is a public hearing. We did notify it as a public hearing. We wanted to at least get the process opened up and in for discussion. The report is basically the first draft of it, and so we wanted to get it out to the board to see if there's any comments, questions, concerns, problems that they see with it, and be able to get all the comments together and be able to put those into one revision packet for the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to make, rather than, you know, me giving them my comments, him revising the document, and then the board members give their comments and him revising the document again. You know, selectmen give their comments. You know, we'd prefer to give them all their comments all at once and have them revise it once, because it's a very tight budget that we're working with, so that's kind of
Okay,
the plan.
all right. Now,
So I'd like to give Jack some time to present the plan to you, and
okay.
we can go through with any questions, concerns the board has.
Since we have a quorum, Phil, do you want to take Simone out in the hallway and swear her in so she can really speak officially?
Just make sure you have enough quorum signatures on that.
I have 4. That's all it takes.
Oh, I just wanna make sure, when I had it, there was only 2, you and me.
I have 4 signatures on it right now. She just needs to write a name on there, and you need to sign it and take her out in the hallway and swear her in.
You can swear,
You
Please.
could do it publicly.
you're right here in the room.
I can't swear her in.
Oh,
Fine.
we can do it
You're on.
publicly.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Come up front.
I told you.
Okay, I'll give you 1 copy.
But she ought to write a name on there, too.
Don't
Not
give
on
it,
there.
don't give
No,
it to her
after
until
she's
you
sworn
sign
in.
it.
Okay, fine.
This one, and what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go through this. Okay, I'm gonna read this, and then I'm gonna get down here, the actual swearing in, and I'm gonna say "I." You repeat after me, but when I say "I," you say your name, okay? And then we'll go through this,
Okay.
okay? This is to Simone Duhamel, 43 Juniper Drive in the county of Hillsborough, town of Goffstown, New Hampshire. Whereas there is a vacancy in the office of planning board in the said town, and whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of said office, we do hereby appoint you, the said Simone Duhamel, an alternate member of the planning board and town, and upon your taking the oath of office and having this appointment and the certificate of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have all the powers, perform the duties, and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and qualified in your stead. You can raise your right hand. I
Simone Duhamel,
do solemnly swear,
that I will faithfully,
repeat after me, do
do
solemnly swear,
solemnly swear,
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent on me
all the duties incumbent on me
as an alternate member of the Planning Board,
as an alternate member of the Planning Board,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the rules and regulations
agreeably to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire.
of the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
All
you,
we need
Simone.
now is your
Welcome.
signature. Oh, pen?
I told you, you asked for it.
Yeah, see, that's what you get. And just sign here and here.
Proposed fee, is that?
Put my name in.
Yes,
down
just
here.
sign your name.
Impact
Sign it in.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So our decisions on the planning board are based on the Constitution and the New Hampshire Constitution and the laws of.
All set. I'll sign them here and give them to Brian, and he'll get them to the town clerk, and you'll get a copy.
Okay, thanks.
So technically, you can speak,
Technically.
technically,
Nice.
if the chair lets you.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Brian, you have
So
the
that
floor.
you know, he was being nice before.
Oh.
Okay.
I have a gavel in there for unruly people. Yes. Brian, you
I'd
still
like-
have the floor.
I'd like to just give some time to Jack to present the main points of the school methodology.
Yes.
So that we can have just some basic understanding of what we're looking at here.
And I will not take up much time.
Good. Jack, you have the floor.
Okay,
Welcome.
thank you. Thank you very much. This impact fee was first adopted in the year 2000. It was updated in the year 2005. The methodology was put together by Bruce Mayberry, who's a planning consultant from Maine and does impact fees for pretty much many towns throughout New England and New Hampshire. And we have been retained by the town to update it using the new 2010 census data and new data. And so what we did is we've used the same methodology that Bruce Mayberry proposed in the original impact fee and have basically updated it. And hopefully you'll take some time to go through it. But I will point you to the second to the last page. The second paragraph is very key to understanding the impact fee, and particularly for schools. And it states, impact fees may be used to pay for future expansion of school capacity at any grade level. In the event that improvements to the town's elementary schools are constructed, provided that it is developed with capacity that exceeds the needs of existing enrollment, impact fees could be applied to reduce the property tax expense of upfront costs associated with school development or to pay debt service on facilities once built. So really, in a nutshell, that's what the fees do for schools. They will help the town reduce the property tax expenses for upfront costs for school development for all residents in the community, primarily new residents, and or to pay debt service on facilities once built.
Okay.
And there's been several facilities built over the years, and a credit's been included in the impact fee schedule, which takes into account past debt bonds, past debt on bonds. There is one other key provision in this that you should take into account, and that this impact fee has a lot of details, has a lot of assumptions in the methodology, but the very key important point is that it does not include the portable classrooms out at Bartlett Elementary School as part of the overall square footage for the fee methodology. If the town, in the next couple of years, continues to use those portable classrooms, at some point, this impact fee methodology should be revised again because the cost for, I'll read the paragraph to you that explains this a little better. And this is on the page which is under, it states at the very top, revised impact fee schedule for public schools. Second paragraph. This, it looks like this. It's, I'm sorry, I don't have page numbers on here, so we will be amending this to include page numbers in the future. But it's right above table 9 in the back of the report. And it states that this fee is predicated on the assumption that permanent additions or new school facilities will be developed at the elementary level to accommodate existing and future Goffstown enrollment without the use of portables.
I go to table 8, but I don't see
I
the
have it,
table
yeah.
9.
Okay.
I have-
Table 9.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. This is, this was a problem that I noticed in my,
These are the revised ones you gave us tonight, right?
oh, maybe that's why you have 2 of them here in
Because
front of
there's a
you.
school impact fee here
Oh,
that didn't have it.
I was sent
Okay.
2 copies.
When Patty copied them and put them in your packets,
Oh, you have
she
2
only got
copies.
the one side and it
Well,
was
she left out the
double-sided.
most important page.
Yeah, this is the,
Of what the
they're
fees
I'll
are,
have to
right?
talk to that girl.
Okay.
under the pile.
Yeah, okay.
Probably one under your pile.
So you should have one that has 2-sided.
Yeah,
Okay,
this one has, this one doesn't have page 9, it's table 9.
okay.
Okay.
Now we're cooking.
Is this junk?
Okay, does everybody have the right one now?
The one that's in our, on the table tonight when we got here.
So I apologize for all of you that had to read through that and were very confused. I was when I read through mine.
Yeah. So basically, this paragraph says, and it's very important to understand this, that this methodology assumes that any permanent additions to the new school facilities will be developed to accommodate existing and future Goffstown enrollment without the use of portables. However, if portables continue to be used as the sole method of providing additional capacity at the elementary level, then the fee basis will need to be reduced to reflect a lower cost per square foot for those facilities. So I know and I understand we've been in touch with Ray Labor over much of the data contained in this updated impact fee for schools that the town is going to be considering a warrant article for improvements to Bartlett Elementary School in the future. I think scheduling it for the March town meeting vote. So I just want to make sure that the planning board and the town's aware that depending on the vote on that bond in March, if the town does not approve the bond and continues to use the portables out at the school facility, then this fee will need to be reduced at some point because there is it reflects the square footage, the maximum square footage currently for Bartlett, the building itself, and not the additional portables for the for the enrollment. And I believe Ray Labor will speak to that tonight. I think he's made some comments already that, and the school board has some opinions about that. So really, those are the 2 big things to take into consideration.
I have a question.
Okay.
Being the homework king in my house, all the homework requires explanation. When it comes to math problems, show me the math.
Mm-hmm.
How did we get to $6,353 for a single-family detached? And somebody, you have to show me the math. You can't just say that's what it is. Okay? Because I'm a teacher. I want to know how you got there.
Okay. So you want me to go through the methodology and
I
go over the
want it in the
details?
report, so that anybody that reads it can understand it.
Oh, you want a paragraph that succinctly states
I
that?
want the math solution in there,
Okay.
okay? Phil?
Thank you. I guess I'm not quite following the rationale that if the portables are continued to be used, that the fees need to be reduced unless I'm not looking at it from the right perspective, because it seems to me that portables are used because you're beyond the capacity of the existing facility.
The difference is the portables are temporary, the existing facility is permanent.
No, I understand, but
That's the difference.
I guess what I don't understand then is if you're, I'm assuming the impact fees are based on the permanent facility. So if in my mind, we get to the permanent facility is up to capacity. We've planned for the construction of that facility. Now we're beyond the capacity of that facility. Sometimes it's a temporary measure, so we get a portable classroom. We have a portable classroom. We're still at the regular facility is still up to capacity, which we've planned for, which the impact fees are based on. But now we're above that, and if we continue to go above that, I don't see why the impact fees need to be reduced because your main facility is still at capacity. I mean, what am I missing?
Well, what you're missing is the impact fees are based on permanent capacity, the need for providing permanent capacity in the future. And right now, that facility is at or exceeds capacity. And so, and it does not take into account the portables, the space that currently are being provided by the portables in that facility now. All that's taken into account is the existing building square footage and the capacity of the existing structure. Now, as new growth occurs and new residents come in and new school children go to the school, there needs to be a cost that's proportionate to what that expense would be for building the new permanent capacity to the school. And the fee methodology includes an estimate of what that would be. If the portables are continued, then the capacity is still going to be exceeded in the future. And so what happens is under this fee, the way it's set up under the methodology, is that fee payers would be assessed at a standard that is not being met by the school facilities that are being provided. So does that make sense?
Well, I think.
Okay.
No, I think what I'm hearing is that currently, if you're specifically talking about Bartlett, you're saying that the impact fee is based on Bartlett that is exceeding capacity, its current capacity?
Right.
It's full and it's really beyond capacity.
Correct.
So what you're saying is that the impact fee is based on that, and that if we continue with the portables on a more permanent, or what's no longer considered, and I don't know what the definition of temporary is, it might be 1 year, it might be 3 years, I don't know. So what you're saying then is if we go beyond and continue with those portables, because of the fact, but I still don't quite follow, if we continue with the portables, why the fee should be reduced. I'm not getting the reason. I understand now that the formula is based on a facility that's at and slightly beyond its capacity. But if we continue the building at that capacity.
Well, it's all based on the standard that's included in the methodology.
Well, let me just
Okay.
take this route.
Sure.
'Cause- So we're using portables right now.
We're not getting anywhere with this, so why are we beating it to death right now?
I'm just trying to get an understanding.
Phil, have the floor for a second, Tim.
Okay, so if I were to say then, okay, as long as we don't have the portables, we can continue with that fee. Okay, well, instead of let's get rid of the portables and let's send those kids someplace else. Then I don't have to reduce them because I don't have the portables. I don't understand why the portables make the difference.
Well, the square footage for those portables would then be entered into a table in the calculation, and that would actually reduce the fees.
Oh, That wasn't included in the explanation.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're increasing the square footage.
Increasing the square footage. So right now, the square footage in the fee does not include the portables. So in the future, if you're going to continue to use those portables, that's total square footage. It's probably not very much, how much those are, but that little bit would then be reduced in the actual total fee that would be calculated, because the actual table that where the adjustment would be made is table 4, which estimates the facility inventory and capacity. And if you look under, it looks like this in the report. If you go to Maple Avenue, Bartlett Elementary, it's currently 21,966 square feet. And that square footage doesn't take into account the size of the portables. So if the town continues to use the portables, they become more permanent. I don't know what your definition, like you say, would be of what, constitutes permanent. At some point, you may want to come back in and add the portable fee here, square footage to that, and then you go across and you do the calculations on the capacity, and we use this factor called gross square foot per pupil for the maximum capacity, and that factor then is moved over into another table, which is in table 5, and you can take under the table looks like this, and under this second column here, where you see elementary, and it's got the gross floor area per pupil. These are the facility standards that I was talking about. So it's all based on standards. So that if you read down under elementary, it's currently 95 for a single-family detached. That would actually probably be reduced. And so we take what we calculate as the enrollment per household, multiply that times the standard, times what we've estimated to be the capital cost for construction, and that gives a total cost per housing unit. And that actually would be reduced. And so the actual fee itself would be reduced by a little bit. Not by much, but it would be reduced by a little bit in the future.
And
Because
this is
you
why
don't-
I asked about the math.
Yes.
This page is not in the handout that we were given in the mail.
I was gonna
This is new tonight.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I would suggest you take more time to review it, and I would be glad to kind of go through a
Okay.
step-by-step calculation of the math.
That's okay. Well, now I have a hint, but I have a couple questions, and
Okay.
it may be either for you or Mr. LeBoer.
Okay.
When you talk about total school enrollment, does that include tuition students from Dunbarton and New Boston?
Yes, and then we break it down by resident enrollment as well. So we separate out total from the town of Goffstown there.
So when you talk about total enrollment in these tables, that's strictly Goffstown residents?
Which tables are you referring to?
I'm referring to the generated enrollment, 2010.
Yeah, the figure 1, this one here?
I'm looking at this
Oh,
one.
okay.
It's a cute little chart. It says 2,000 projected, and then as the actual is of November 2010, which is already a year old.
Yeah.
Is that number of students by grade category, is that including the tuition students from other towns?
Okay, this section, I'm going to get to that question, but let me explain what this purpose of what this section does. This includes a statistical process where we try to come up with numbers of estimated enrollment per occupied housing unit, and these would be Goffstown students per housing unit. And the way we have done this is because the 2010 census doesn't have the multipliers that we'd hope to see, which would be the estimated enrollment per occupied housing unit. And so what we've had to do is we've taken what was generated in your current report in 2005 and have taken out age-restricted and senior housing. You can see total occupied housing units there, single-family, in the new census is 4,402. We've removed age-restricted and seniors, which were 70 units, and came up with a total occupied housing units of 4,332 single-family units. And then we have used that on the next page to estimate enrollment per occupied unit in Goffstown, and have projected out using these 2005 multipliers to project out what the school enrollment would be in 2010. And then we took a ratio of actual to projected, which is in the very bottom of the table here, to adjust the multipliers so that we would have 2010 multipliers. Then we projected forward the enrollment for 2010 based on the different grade levels, kindergarten through 4th grade, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, and so forth, and then backed out the multipliers from that. So we used a statistical math calculation to come up with the average public school enrollment per unit, which is in Table 3. And this is a very critical part of the school enrollment methodology, because without these multipliers, we can't have an impact fee report methodology completed. So yes, these are based on residents, school age residents in Goffstown, and they're based on only those units that don't have seniors or age-restricted housing residents in those occupied units. So that's what that section does. And each section has a specific purpose like that, and then we pull all of that information together into these tables that I showed you, Table 4 and 5, to actually come up with the calculation for the impact fee. And I don't really think you want to spend a lot of time going through that tonight. I'd be glad to come back and do a more detailed step-by-step analysis for you.
Just one question, Tim, then I'm going to open up to the public or ask if there's any representatives of the school department here wishing to speak. So, Tim, you have the floor for a second.
We have two fee schedules, an impact fee schedule for 2010 update, and we also have Table 9, which is update impact fee 2011. The numbers are identical. Does that mean is this a proposed for 2011, or is this the current 2011 impact fee? Table 9.
This would be for 2011, Table 9. It's the same thing as the front of the report. The basis for the fee schedule is 2010 enrollment data and 2010 housing data. When the original report was done back in 2000, it used the 2000 census and then adjusted that in 2005 for the growth of the town during that time period. But it used the enrollment data as of October 1999 as the base year in the original impact fee assessment.
So is this the current fee for 2011?
Yeah,
which we're
this
in
would
right
be the current fee, correct.
now? So are you proposing a fee for 2012 somewhere?
No, this would be the updated fee that you would use going forward.
Which is the same as last year?
No.
We haven't adopted any new fee.
The
The
2000,
current fee is $4,748.
I think the report is a
Alan?
little
Oh,
confusing.
I see what you're
because
saying
It says
here.
2010 on one of them,
Right.
and it says
The-
2011 on the
current
other one.
impact fee is, for a single family, is $4,748, and it's proposed to go to $6,353, of an increase of about $1,600.
I see, the heading there is confusing you. It's actually just, it's a 2010 update. That's all it should say on Table 9. Updated as of 2010.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask Jack to explain the main difference for the increase, the main reason for the increase? Because when you look at the enrollment just by itself. You don't see any change really in school enrollment. In fact, it decreases slightly over the past few years. So can you just,
Yeah.
in a couple sentences, explain what the reasoning or why that is increasing the fee?
Yeah, if you go to Table 1, at the top of Table 1, the new census data has shown that there has been a decrease of resident public school enrollment in Goffstown, or the number of school-aged children in Goffstown, ages 5 to 17, have decreased 8.4%. However, at the same time, there's been a slight increase in resident public school enrollment in Goffstown of 3.8%. So we have that going on, plus there's been an increase of total housing units between 2000 and 2010 of 9.37%. So with the
Between when? What year?
between 2000 and 2010.
Yeah.
There's been an increase in housing units of 9.3%.
Well, how about, we talk about what's the housing increase has been since 2006 on? Because we adopted this current one in 2005. So if we're not talking that kind of stuff. I'd like to see numbers that reflect 2005 to 2010. Going back to 2000 doesn't do anything for me.
That was
It's
a bubble.
it's a bad comparative
Yeah.
analysis to try to compare the exorbitant growth we had in those years versus what we've had the last few years.
And including that in an average is wrong.
Yeah.
We can include a column here that shows 2005
Doesn't show
to
it.
2010.
I think it's tilted too much.
Okay.
Two things occur to me, and one is, when we propose a revised impact fee that's, say, 33% larger, and somebody says, what's the justification? And we're sitting here as being the judge of this thing. We make a recommendation. And I have to be sure that I'm satisfied that that's warranted. Right now, I'm not. Okay,
Well,
so
you're-
your task is outlined for you.
Yes, you have two elementary schools that continue to be at over capacity and will estimated to continue to be over at capacity. So the need for the fee is to accommodate for that continued growth in those schools.
But see, is that okay,
And then the cost of construction has increased quite a bit for schools. You can look at the section, when you review this, it's facility cost per square foot. This is based on the New Hampshire Department of Education's cost of constructions within Hillsborough County of schools within the last couple of years. And it includes a significant increase in
but Jack,
construction.
we don't have to codify your methodology or your formulas in determining what this fee should be. You can explain it, and we can take and do whatever we desire.
Right.
Okay. That needs to be understood by this board. So,
I was just trying to answer the question.
I know that, because one of my big things is, when is the impact fee paid? Anybody know?
Well, the building permit, isn't it?
No? Is it at CO?
Yes, it is at CO.
Okay, so it's paid at the end, when you get ready to move in, you get a certificate of occupancy.
That's right.
That needs to be understood. It's not something you pay in advance. Because if it was in advance, it's taxation without representation, because you're being taxed for something of no value to you when you get a permit to build, if you had to pay it in advance. Okay. Needs to be understood that this is at closing.
Right.
Bill?
Yeah, I would have a concern, though, of being careful of where we take the span of what we do for to look at the changes in the population. I mean, I understand the point of the 2006 and the 2000, I understand that. Though the concern that I have is taking it from a trajectory where the population is decreasing and continuing it out, versus taking it over something that is perhaps a generally accepted practice or it's generally accepted standard in this type of a calculation. So I would be more concerned that the methodology that we look at is based on what is an industry standard for that span, to make sure that we don't skew the numbers by taking it from a point in time when the population is decreasing, and therefore have a problem, as you pointed out, people who are coming in today and putting in an application for something, and let's say it's constructed and they get their CO 3 years, and the change goes up and it's increasing, where we didn't have that foresight, and we have impact fees then that are based on a decreasing population, but the population is actually on the trend of increasing. So I would be careful. I want to make sure that what it's based on is industry standard and what's accepted as this type of methodology.
And understood. But we can modify an impact fee anytime we wish. There's a 5-year minimum
And you
or a
can't,
maximum between reviews.
you can't do it
Yeah.
more than once a year.
Understood. But I mean, you can do it more frequently than we have in the past.
And,
That's right.
and that's.
If we were to get suddenly have an expansive growth situation, we can address that immediately.
But if I can just follow up on that, I mean, we traditionally, I would say that since I've been on the board, it's not a regular or once-a-year thing that we have a conversation with somebody in the school district to say, do we need to update this methodology or the trends, or are we out of sync on this? And I just have a concern. I guess I have a concern because the issue that we have with our CIP, funding everything that, the needs that we have in the community, I just want to make sure that if this trend reverses, that we're on top of it, because this is the first time we've had this discussion since the last time we've had a discussion on the impact fees. So saying that this is something we can do once a year, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to, you know, keep on top of it. That's
Understood.
And that's a very good point. In most towns that have town planners, the town planners actually try to keep on top of it in terms of population growth, building trends, and the need for the fees. And so they come back and advise the planning boards as to whether the fees need to be modified or reduced or adjusted based on current
Well,
trends.
Just if it also depends on the time of year that it's done, because we have times of the year too where we get busy, or we get workshops where we have zoning changes, we have hearings, and depending on how many petition articles we get kind of busy ourselves. And then to have the planner come in and say, oh, by the way, guys, we have another thing here that's very important that we really want to get done right away, and it's school impact fees. I just want to make sure it doesn't get, you know, on the bottom of the list every month.
Yeah, and that's why I pointed out too the question about the portables, because in the future you may want to take a look at that and see whether or not you want to make adjustments for that or not.
All right. Now, we're at some kind of point that we have a public hearing that's open. Mr. Labor is sitting patiently back there, and I'd like to give him a chance, if he would like to speak at all, to please come forward and do so.
My purpose here tonight really is to listen and try to gather information. I haven't been tasked by the Goffstown School Board to make any position statements on their behalf. One thing I would like to just share, though, with the planning board, Mr. Chairman, is a concern that the school district is picking up on, and that has to do with an alleged development, new housing development in back of Shaw's. We understand there are going to be 48 additional units, or 2-bedroom units, that are going to be.
That's a long way down the road, Ray.
We don't know what that is, though, Tim. And the concern is what in the world does that do to the Bartlett Elementary School?
Yeah.
And now, whether it's down the road a couple of years, 5 or 10 years. The point of the matter is we can't afford to be caught short. There are plans being developed right now and will be presented a little bit later on with respect to expansions at the Bartlett Elementary School as well as Maple Avenue. Long and the short of it is the expansions of the physical plants are intended to eliminate the use of the portable classrooms that are there. The desire of the school district is to move the kids out of the portables and put them into the building. For security reasons, just plain logistics, every time a child has to go to the bathroom, they have to leave a portable building, run across the schoolyard, and be admitted into the main facility. We would like to eliminate that. The concern that I have now is listening to Jack's presentation a little bit earlier with respect to if we do not do anything with respect to building a permanent plant, if I can call it that, adding on classrooms, and we are forced to continue use of the portables, then we begin to, or we will have to consider adjustments in impact fees. And that seems counterintuitive to me. I perhaps don't understand it. But given, again, folks, the economic climate that we're all looking at, I think it's a, you know, it's going to be a tough call as to how a bond vote would go during March's elections. And as a result, it's a very real probability, I think, that portables would have to be continued at both of our elementary school sites. I probably need to have, as the school board needs to understand what's being proposed here, to come up with some legitimate questions and observations that we can share with you folks. And I'd like to arrange for that. And if we are going to be setting up round 2 with respect to your discussions, that we'd be more prepared to have an intelligent conversation with all of you.
I would think that, for one, you need to have copies of these proposals and the information presented, both to confirm of the accuracy. And quite honestly, I'm surprised that I would recommend that somebody from the district become part of this group, I'll call it the town intergroup, that works on this project in advance, so that you continue to be informed. I think that would be a wise move. So, I mean, I have my own homework, because now I have 5 extra sheets of information that I didn't have before, that probably explain most of my questions. So, we are here. Tim?
I'd like to just make a point that, considering raising the impact fees from $47.48 to $63.53, I think when we start raising impact fees, we could also start reducing development in town. People are not going to want to build houses and pay. You got this impact fee, there's a recreation impact fee, there's what, a public works impact fee, Brian?
Transportation,
Transportation.
that's also on this agenda tonight.
So, when you're going to tack on all these impact fees, you get them to the point where people might not want to build in Goffstown. They might
Might
say,
be a good thing, residential housing for a while.
I'm just saying.
It might be a good thing.
So I think raising the fees as high as they are is just another way around the taxes in town, because before impact fees ever came around, people paid their taxes, and that's how you built schools. You paid your property tax on your buildings, the money went into the town doled it all out and built buildings. Now we have impact fees, so if we're gonna keep cheating these up, it's just another tax.
Do we know how much in 2010, the town collected in impact fees, school impact fees?
I've got some data in here, which is actually very enlightening on this question. If you go to I wished I had added the page numbers, and I'm sorry about that. But if you go to this table, which is identified as table number,
Is that the school package?
it's a credit allowance table number 2. And it's right under, it's in the section dealing with where the bonds are located and the credits for the bond payments under credit allowance. It's after table 6, and it's
After table 6.
right after table 6.
Yep.
And it's this table at the very
Yep.
bottom of the page. And this is very interesting because when the community built Glen Lake School back in 2004, 2005, the total project cost $3.3 million. There was state aid of about $2.2 million, but there was also $436,769 of impact fees that helped reduce the cost of construction of Glen Lake School. And the local property tax portion from your unreserved fund balance was only, well, a little over $500,000 that went into building the school. So that's pretty significant, and I think a job well done to the town of Goffstown.
But I think it's, when you think about what was been collected, that was in a
Building boom.
building boom. I don't know, I'd be curious, because I asked the same question when it came to transportation fees, how much we had collected. And it was insignificant. And we're talking about these impact fees, so I'd be very, it would be nice to know what kind of dollars we're talking about in today's economy. Are we talking about 100,000?
I would say over a 1-year period, the town probably, well, last year the town built 15 single-family homes. So if you multiply approximately 5,000 times 15 dwelling units, that's $75,000 in impact fees.
Yeah.
For
nothing.
single-family dwelling units, and that's mostly what was developed last year. I think there was maybe one multifamily unit.
And I'm thinking that we used some of those school impact fees when we did the first project at Bartlett School. I think there was a portion that was in there also, I
That's
think.
correct, Mr. Chair.
So it's being used wisely, but it's not a big dollar, and I'm thinking these bond issues coming up, or what
Impact-
size, Ray?
Impact fees to are funding exclusively funding the architectural and engineering work that's being conducted right now for both of the elementary schools in town. So impact fees are playing a very important role in helping the school district plan for expansion. Bonds, Mr. Chair, the potential bond value, if both of the elementary facilities do go forward, I would estimate will be somewhere in a range of $14.5 million over 20 years.
But again,
I'm just gonna ask a technical question, Brian. When we talk about impact fees, there's the usual statement that it's made, the impact fees are collected to generate revenue for the expansion of improvements of facilities.
And for debt payment, debt service.
And debt payment. Okay. But I heard Ray say something they're using it for engineering and architecture.
Name it.
Is that part of it?
that's for the expansion of these two buildings,
Whoa.
so that counts into this
That sounds like a stretch to me.
calculation.
I'm sorry.
The big difference is you can't use it for building temporary facilities, things like expansion of ball fields, things like that.
No,
It
that's
has to
stated in
be-
the law, but I didn't hear anything in there about
It has to be capacity.
project planning.
It has to be building capacity. And that's why the portables is kind of a question.
Yeah, okay. All right. We beat this to death.
Yep.
And I'm not gonna close the public hearing, so I'm looking for a motion to continue this to a date certain.
So moved.
Why?
The recommended date on my report was the first meeting in December, I
Eliminate
believe.
impact fees.
Was that the December?
a motion to eliminate.
December 8th.
8th, that's right.
Does that give everybody sufficient time to
Or no, it'd be
modify
increase.
and editorialize their reports?
What's the date certain, Brian?
December 8th?
December 8th, according to the staff recommendations. It's the first meeting. Is that the only meeting we have in December,
I
Brian?
believe there's a December 15th meeting
Did
as
you
well.
get a motion or a
right
second
after
on
it.
that?
So, well, I need a motion in a second, yes.
I think Phil made the motion, right?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Motion by Phil, seconded by Tim. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? One opposed. Motion carries to continue. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your input and your hard work. Thank you. I look forward to some coordination of effort here. Ryan, you have the floor again. What's next?
Mr. Chair, the next one on the agenda is the groundwater protection plan. Thus far, the town has been working on what we knew beforehand as the source water protection plan. We changed that name at the recommendation of our member Carl Foley here, because it really is a plan about groundwater and not, and it had a confliction with another acronym. SWPP was a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan
And it
through
just-
DES. And so we, rather than having that conflicting acronym for this plan, we felt it was okay to change the name, and it really fits within a groundwater protection plan anyway.
Okay.
So, that being said, we've gone through the report and been discussing this with the Village Water Precinct. In fact, Megan and I were meeting with the Village Water Precinct today, one more time, and they provided us basically a few minor recommendations of places where in the document they would want to see their entity being referenced, where it had been sort of left out. And we've presented information and recommendations to take out the whole part about updating the zoning ordinance of this document. So we're sort of left with approving or recommending that we approve the master plan portion of it as it being adopted by reference to the master plan, and then the recommended changes to the development regulations that were listed in the back, but leaving out the portions of the document that were to update the zoning ordinance and include a section that would require certain zoning requirements on people, and that was for several reasons. The Village Water Precinct felt that it sort of stepped on their toes as far as enforcement of the wellhead protection areas, and they already deal with a lot of that stuff anyway, and they thought that it was a duplication of effort to have it in the zoning ordinance when they were already really doing that work anyway. And then also, you know, it would have been taxing on the development community on the commercial side of things, because the proposal had been to include the entire transmissivity area as part of the zoning, the zoned area that would be under that area of influence for the zoning overlay. And so from an economic development standpoint and from the standpoint of the Village Water Precinct, we felt it was just going to be better to leave that part out. And if we want to look at some possible zoning ordinance changes down the road in a couple of years or something, then we go forward with that. But at this time, we just want to leave that one out and move forward with the other portions of it. So Jack has basically gotten us to a point where I think we can recommend adoption with a few minor changes. We've had a committee going forward, reviewing this all this time. We feel that if the board decides to adopt this as part of the master plan and go forward with the recommended development regulation changes, that committee would no longer have to be in place. We wouldn't have to continue meeting as a committee anymore once they are in place. So that would be our recommendation to just let that stop at that point, and then adopt this by reference to the master plan. And then there are very couple of minor tweaks that need to be made, and I'll let Jack outline what those are. They were comments that came from the state. They're the ones who actually gave the grant to Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to do this whole project for us, so they've been overseeing it. Pierce Rigrod from the state DES has been helping us along with it, and he's given us some good recommendations all along. With that, I'd like to give some time to Jack, if that's okay, to just outline the few minor changes, and then I'll outline the 3 changes that the Village Water Precinct wanted.
Well, before we get into this,
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not prepared to do anything on this. At all. So, I think it's, we can go through this, we can have a public hearing. But my vote will be no about doing anything with this, at all.
Want a motion?
I think it's onerous, and I think it's counterproductive. I don't care if the state gave us a grant to do anything. But I've tried to get my head around this thing, 5 or 6 hours reading this thing, and I don't understand it. If I don't understand it, it's not going anywhere. Because I can't interpret it, can't enforce it, and I can't rule about it. And I'm certainly not gonna put it in the development regs or put it in the zoning ordinance with that over my head. You have the floor, Jack.
Well, this is just an advisory plan. It's not here to say that you have to implement it. It's really to identify a lot of good information about contamination sources and locations, where there are community public water supply systems within your community, where people come in and drink the drinking water from the groundwater. And the only thing really that would have the greatest benefit is to have this as information for the public. And I think as advisory, it's fine, and that's all we would hope that you would acknowledge, that it's a good piece of information.
I don't doubt that.
Okay.
I mean, I understand that. I just don't think it's enforceable, and I don't think it's required.
No, it's not required, it's not enforceable, but there is a stewardship, because as development occurs, there's always potential for spills and leaks. And as you get development projects that come before you, you would want to make sure that those new gas stations or new bulk storage facilities have all the BMPs in place, so that in case there is potential for storage, there's adequate containment on site, and then that petroleum or whatever regulated substance doesn't get into the groundwater.
Understood.
And that's really the whole purpose of it. And these little housekeeping changes, Brian called them tweaks, I call them housekeeping changes to your development regulations, really would help. It's just like a checklist. Here, have you provided this information to the planning board? or to the town officials, the code enforcement people, have you provided this, the fire department's gonna want this sort of information anyway, types of regulated substances you may have on your property. And then what are you doing to help the prevention in case of a spill? And that's really all these development regulations do. And once the groundwater is contaminated, it's gone. It's never hard to use it again. And this is meant as a way to safeguard things without expensive cleanup cost to property owners and to the town. So that's all I would have to say, and thank you very much. And
We have a public hearing open, so any members of the public wishing to speak? Megan?
Well, I just, I guess was a little concerned to say that you're not interested in making any kind of motion tonight. You know, our committee has met together several times, and we've been working hard on this document and, you know, reviewing it in depth, trying to, you know, sort through the information here. At our last meeting, you know, we really looked at the different proposals that were coming from the report, and we narrowed down to what we thought was reasonable and feasible to do now, with the thought of maybe looking at more of this in the future. So, I mean, my understanding of what we were asking you to do tonight was to accept this plan as, you know, kind of a source of information for future, you know, when we want to do future work on this, or, you know, I mean, there's a lot of good information in here about known contaminant sites around town and things like that, and, it's, you know, it's just a lot of basic information that I think is good to have in a report. There's recommended rules in here, but nothing that is being required, like per zoning, no enforceable zoning and things like that. The only thing we were recommending was to adopt the development regulation requirements, which were just really just adding a little bit more information to site plans and subdivision plans, essentially when you're in these zones, like when you're in these radiuses around these wells, you would add any of the contaminated sites that might be near, you know, near your proposed site or subdivision plan. You would add any stratified drift aquifers and things like that. So it's and if necessary, if it's like a commercial use, you would have to have a spill prevention plan, things like that. But it wasn't, you know, we kind of took out the whole zoning and enforcement of restricted uses and special exceptions needed and all that, because we thought that was a little too much right now. I agree it's a lot to digest. It was a lot for me to digest, you know, and really sit down and to understand it. But, you know, once you get your head around it, it does make sense to me, and I guess, I don't know, I just wanted to explain my support for at least adopting this document, you know, as part of our master plan, as a resource, as a, you know, and we got that support this afternoon from the Village Water Precinct too. You know, as Brian said, they did have some concerns about the zoning part of things and the overlapping rules and things like that, which is part of why we decided to leave that out right now. But they did think that, you know, it was a valid document with good information and should be used as a resource, you know, now and in the future.
How come my handout has a chapter called Recommended Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance?
Again, what it is this is the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission giving you their recommendations.
Okay.
It's in there as literally an appendix. It's just an appendix to a document with recommendations. So in the future, let's say in 2-3 years, we decide we want to take this seriously. Let's say we have a contaminated situation and we decide we need to take this seriously. This is a starting point for us to do that, okay? So maybe the town won't take it seriously until something happens, and at that point, we would go to this document and we have a starting point. We wouldn't have to start all over again. We would have a point to start from because, you know, Jack and people at Southern New Hampshire pulled this information from surrounding towns that are already doing this type of stuff. So it's only in here as an appendix as recommended language should the town choose to adopt it. But you're not, by adopting this to the master plan, you are not adopting those zoning rules. We were asking you to adopt the development rules, but if the planning board chooses so, you could at least, at a minimum tonight, adopt this, groundwater protection plan to the master plan, but you could choose not to adopt the development regulations. If you felt as though you didn't wanna add any new regulations, you could at least adopt the plan.
I can't add it to the master plan without public hearings.
It's a
That's number
public
one.
hearing tonight.
There has to be more than one. Tim?
No, it doesn't.
Brian, are there portions of this document that you said need to be removed as part of portions of this that are not recommended or are duplicity with the water precinct? Did you say that?
No, what I was basically alluding to was what Megan had said, was that, you know, the zoning ordinance part is not gonna be a recommendation that we adopt, going forward. Whether or not we leave those, that text in there about the recommended zoning ordinance changes, you know, I guess either way, I think if the board wanted to leave that in or take it out, they could do that. Again, as Megan said, it's information that's in there that will be useful for going forward if we ever do want to pick this back up and do something about, you know, making some changes to the zoning ordinance. But we don't have to do that ever if we don't want to.
So there's nothing in here that you would want to remove from this before you asked to consider it for recommendation?
No,
It's all there.
It's all there,
You
yeah.
don't want to take any out? Okay.
Yeah, and, I mean, the changes that I had were minor. They were basically making the village precinct, their name appear in a couple of locations.
There were 3 changes on 3 pages, pages 8, 10, and 15. They were very, very minor. It was changing one word to another word, taking out Pennachuck, adding in the precinct, and then one other comment, taking out Town of Goffstown and putting in Goffstown Village. So it was 3 very basic, minimal changes. They
Yeah.
were supportive of.
Yep, and they were, I mean, that'll show up in their minutes, and obviously, they met today, and so they didn't have time to put anything in writing to the planning board. But, you know, they said they would be very willing to do something in writing, for the record, you know, going forward. Phil's got his hand up, but.
Oh, I thought that's Phil.
Thank you. This is quite an extensive plan, and as has been mentioned, there is quite a bit of information in here. One concern that I have in the master plan, though, is to make any amendments, you have to have a public hearing. You have to go through a process.
Yes.
And there's a lot of technical information in here. There's a lot of, I guess, what you might consider scientific information that's in here. Quite a bit. Where the master plan that we currently have is a document that we've created that's based on visions, our zoning, what we see for the community. It's a different type of a document. It's not based on this, outside of factual information as far as populations and that type of information that's in there. It's not based on approximation of how much water you're gonna get out of a certain area of the town, that type of technical information. I don't know. I guess the concern that I have is how thick the master plan is, and you know, you like to have a plan, or I like to have a plan that if somebody comes into the community and they look and they say, gee, the town has a master plan, let me take a look at this master plan, that it's not something that as soon as they see this plan, I don't want them, you know, a plan that's this big, oh my God, you know, and they're afraid to even look at the plan. But something that they can look at and the average person can put a kind of a handle on it and get an idea of what the planning board, or whoever's adopted the plan, what type of vision they have for the community, where the community is, and where the community is going. I'm not sure if this, and I don't mean it as this plan itself, but it seems to me that if we incorporate a groundwater protection plan into the master plan, then why don't we incorporate other plans that we have in town, like an emergency management plan? I mean, to me, if you're thinking about planning, an emergency management plan is something that everybody should be aware of in case there's an emergency. So the argument could be that that should be part of the master plan. We have solid waste management plan, we have all kinds of plans, and that's, I guess, a concern that I have. And I'm just wondering if there's a way of all the different types of plans that we have, you know, how they are. It's, instead of something that's just put on the shelf and you forget about it, because it has a lot of important and good, useful information. But I'm just not sure if the master plan is the place for it. I just want to make sure that it doesn't get lost and that we do reference some of the information. And I think some of this information perhaps does belong in some of our regs or references to it somehow, so.
If I might just point out one thing that I've noticed is our master plan does have a study of that nature. It's the 114A corridor management plan that's been adopted as part of the master plan. And it's got a lot of technical data in there. It's got a lot of information about, you know, plans for the future for that corridor. I think this would be similar to that. I mean, we would adopt it by reference. It doesn't have to be necessarily a part of the book itself of the master plan, but it can be, you know, held as a separate document that is referenced in the master plan. And, you know, when people pick up the master plan, they won't have to, you know, page through that whole thing in order to get the views on the town. But if they wanted to look at this particular aspect of the master plan, then they could go to that. And again, as has been stated, it's good information for the public to have. It's good information and good recommendations that we look to protect these areas. We don't currently have anything in place really to protect the wellhead protection areas. We do have, you know, wetland overlay districts in our zoning ordinance, but this is a kind of a different animal in and of itself. So
I don't have a real problem with the 2 pages of development plan requirements, other than the statement it's actually 3 pages, I guess, or 2.5 pages, where they talk about what's added to the development regulations. Recommended amendments to site plan and subdivision regulations. I'm not sure that,
yeah,
we have a zoning ordinance,
it's
and
development
we have
regulations.
development regulations.
Yeah.
But it's.
That's just wrongly stated.
I'm sorry. It's twice. You say the same thing twice on the same 2 pages. One's for site plans and one's for subdivisions. Why can't we consolidate and say, this is it, boys? Site plans and subdivisions.
We have 2 sections in the development regulations, one for site plans.
I understand that.
Subdivisions.
Tim?
If we're looking for protection for the groundwater from things like fuel storage depots and gas station tanks and such, all that engineering is already done when the site plan comes in. We don't have to have regulations telling them what to do because there are already regulations in place.
Here's a good example. 15 is submittal of a SPCC plan to the fire department for review with certain criteria. My God.
think we can use it as a reference document.
Yep.
But to part and parcel, adopt it to the master plan, maybe it should be, as Phil said, maybe this should be a standalone document that we accept and want to refer to and make recommendations to, but I don't think the master plan is the place for it either.
Well, does anybody have a problem adopting it? We can adopt it as a plan.
As a reference plan, reference
The
document.
reference document. Yes.
I like that idea, I think Brian mentioned it, is there a way, in the master plan to reference it somewhere so that people are aware that it exists?
Sure.
Because usually when people come to town, like you said, they'd be interested in our master plan, and I would just hope maybe at the back of it, there's a reference to other plans that have been created, and maybe that's where things like the emergency management plan, or things like that, but it'd be nice for kind of
Right.
some kind of sheet at the back of the master plan, if it doesn't already exist, that lists these type of things, so that they aren't lost.
So if we're not gonna consider adopting it to the master plan, we don't need to have a public hearing on it.
Well, we have a public hearing ongoing at the moment,
Okay.
so we covered the bases,
The point,
whichever ways it goes.
the point that I'm trying to make is, adopt it by reference, which is basically what we're doing, to the master plan. Adopt it by reference, that way it references it in the master plan, and then we look to it, as a separate document.
That's a tool.
Yeah, but that does require the public hearing. It was noticed for a public hearing.
We're all here.
We're all here.
Well, we're minus 3 elected members of the board too tonight. So I'm not how sure the board feels whether they want to take a vote tonight, or whether you want to take and wait till we get a more full board appearance, and we'll bring it up as an item on the agenda.
I think you're right. I think we should wait till we have more elected members of the board here to consider this.
I think
Phil.
if all we're doing is adopting is accepting the plan, I don't think that it's an issue, okay? If that's all we're doing. I mean, we've had the public hearing, the people are here. I mean, the ones that are here, we've had the discussion, we know what's basically in the plan. And I just have a concern that, by not doing it, now you're gonna have people here. Are we gonna continue the public hearing? Are we gonna go through this process? Or are we gonna just bring this up at another meeting? And, when we bring it up, the ones that weren't here, they don't have the plan with them. We go through the discussion again. I mean, I don't have a problem adopting the plan, accepting the plan.
It's up to the board as a whole. It's not up to any one person, individual, but go ahead, John.
Does this plan in any way increase restrictions or regulations?
Technically, probably there'll be a wrinkle in somebody's plans based upon these regulations, yes. Somewheres, we're gonna run into it. It's inevitable, especially given the, just looking at the list of underground or contaminant sites or potential contaminant sites and whatever. I think it's a good reference document because it prevents you from having to research stuff independently. It's here. You can find it. You can find the sites here, and I think that's the importance of this document is we become more aware of the problems that exist in the community. And I think that's important. And it's important as board members to be aware of this document and use it when they look at plans submitted to this board to raise questions if they see something that is reflected in this document that applies to the site that we're looking at. And that's where I think it's important. It's a document that every board member should keep on their shelves as a reference document to get ready information if they need it, and to ask questions. Whether that will affect our decision in approving or denying approval of a project or a plan, then it becomes part of the decision-making process. Tim, you're thinking over there, I can see it.
I'd like to move this on to another meeting, Phil. I'd like to give it a little
That's
more
fine.
time. I would actually like to possibly get Collis Adams' opinion of some of the content of this before we make a firm decision on whether we're going to take this into our to our arms and recommend what's in this document.
Well, I think it's all good information.
It's all good information.
It's just whether it makes things more complicated than it needs to
Simplicity.
be, because it's already part of our considerations in determining approval of a project or a review of engineering. It just now puts it in a Word format that we will look at it. We won't miss it because it's part of our document. Is that kind of a safe thing?
Well, there's
Megan?
three things that can be done. One is accepting this document, however, as a standalone document. That's one thing that can be done. That doesn't mean you're adding any zoning or you're adding any development regs. You're just accepting this document with the data in it as a planning board document.
Mm-hmm.
The next one you could do is you could take the recommended development regulations and add them to our development regulations. And if you have to do another public hearing, I'm just saying, that's another thing you could do. The third thing you could do, which we're not recommending at this time, is accept the zoning changes. So there's
Mhm.
three things. So I mean, you could just do the first, which is accept this plan, and that does not put any more restrictions on any business, anything. It's just, these are recommendations, this is data.
And it makes us more aware of the conditions and considerations.
I just wanted to be clear because
I mean, I'm trying to,
The question was about, are we putting more restrictions on, and by accepting the document and the data that's in it, you're not putting restrictions on anything. It's just there as a source of information, like you said.
If you do
Brian?
if you do approve the development regulations changes, then it would be a slight increase in regulation on some development, whatever development happens within the wellhead protection areas.
it can be without being in the development regulations. We as a board have a right to take and employ any device, report, whatever, in our adjudication of a submission of an application. Doesn't have to be written in our development regs. We have the right to question and the right to determine what's right for our community. Boy, you've been very,
Well, I read the document, and I would agree with Tim, but if we were to accept this tonight as a reference material alone, that the
Mhm.
planning board can go to, we're not changing regulations, we're not changing zoning,
mm-hmm,
and then it can come back to us
mm-hmm,
without a public hearing, and we can get Collis's input, or get other board members' input, if we need to. But we can, I believe, accept this as a reference document,
Yep.
standalone document, as has been suggested.
okay. And we can leave the public hearing open. I don't have to close it, make that decision, because we're not adding anything to the zoning ordinance or the development regulations. If we were to take a vote on either one of those, we'd have to close the public hearing.
Okay.
So we can adopt it as a reference document, not adopt it, but approve it as a reference document, leave the public hearing open to a date uncertain, and allow the other members, through notice from Brian's office, send it out to everybody, please read the document, please read the latest document, to make sure they understand it, and to please read the minutes of the meeting to understand our concerns that was expressed by members of the board and the chair. That sound feasible, reasonable?
That sounds reasonable to
Okay. Then I'd look for a motion on the floor to accept this report as given,
So moved.
and, so I have a motion to accept this report as given. Is there a
As
second?
presented.
Brenda's, second.
Seconded by Carl. Any discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a question?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure in my head, so I understand what the board wants and is doing. Is this an acceptance of the plan by reference that would be referenced in the master plan, or that would just be each of you are saying, standalone and not even referenced in the master plan?
Not to be referenced in the master plan, because there was no motion to do that, because to add it to the master plan requires the closing of the public hearing.
We can do that at a later
We
date.
could do it at a later date.
That's fine.
So I think the only thing we really can do is accept the report as a document which we can utilize from today on as a reference material for any further projects that come in, appear before the board, and anything in here could be a questionable topic on any plan submitted to this board.
Would
Because we
the,
now are individually aware of its content, so we can question and utilize all that information as given.
should the recommended minor changes be included in that, or?
I would say any edits that you want to make on that is purely, at this point, something you'd want to do.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be, this is not subject to any, I call it edits and whatever. We'd assume that some final report with a date on the top that said, some kind of date finite, that when you get it back, that's got all the edits that you'd like to make.
Yep.
That would be it.
Okay.
And if it's just a word thing like Pennachuck to
Village.
Village District, I don't think that's a very important thing, to be honest with you. Okay. Any other comments on the motion on the floor? Seeing now, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Chair is opposed also. Motion carries. And the reason I'm opposed is I'm like as fewer regulations as possible. It has nothing to do with the content. I'm a minimalist per se, and like to try to keep things as simple as possible until confronted with problems, which usually happens. So I would look forward to utilizing this document as a review source for anything that comes to the board. Thank you, Jack, for putting up with the board.
Interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, does the board,
Yes,
does the board want to also vote to continue the public hearing at all, or?
we need a motion to continue to a date uncertain at this time.
This one?
That leaves it open to whenever we can get back to it, or
I don't want to talk about it.
between staff, if the other members of the board are comfortable with moving it forward. Need a motion to continue to date uncertain.
So moved.
Motion by Tim, and I'll hear a second on the floor.
Okay, we're not doing it.
No second. Motion fails.
Perfect.
So does that
So-
mean the public hearing needs to be closed then, or?
No, that's the chair's prerogative. I'm not closing the public hearing. We'll take it up at another time. This is not a dead issue, and I'm not gonna allow it to die without having the other board members have an opportunity. I think that's in all fairness. Tim asked for some further input, and I think it's fair to the other members of the board who are always have an opinion, like mine, about everything. So I think it needs to stay that way. So right now, the public hearing is still open. There's no motion to continue it. I'm not really sure of what the,
I don't know how that works. I mean,
I'm not
if
sure
you-
I do either. So as the
leave-
chair, I'm gonna do the best I can.
If you leave it open and don't continue it to a specific date, then it's basically the same thing as a motion to continue to a non-date
Well,
specific.
if we've adopted it as a document, then why would you have to continue the public hearing? The vote by the board
Well-
was to adopt it, so.
But there
Well,
was
we'd
a,
have to take it up again if we decided we wanted added to the development regs and/or the zoning ordinance.
Well, then you can renotice it and start over.
well, then I think a vote to continue it to a date non-specific does that. That's what I'm basically saying. Either close the public hearing now and say, no, we're not gonna do it, or continue it to a date non-specific when we can get it on another agenda when everybody's comfortable and ready.
Can I quiz the board on this one? Phil, what do you feel about this?
Well, my understanding was that we were gonna have a discussion when the other members of the board were here. We were gonna try to get some input from Collis as to see what his opinion was on the content of the plan, and I thought, I was hoping that we would have a full discussion about it at that point in time to see if this is something that should be adopted into the master plan. If it is, perhaps we'll have a further discussion to see if there are other plans that should be adopted to the master plan. And if we decide to, and hold a public hearing and have all of them, or one.
The nice part
Or
about,
none. Okay, Simone,
I'm with you on all. I'm serious.
okay,
Lots of regulations
Oh.
is not a good thing.
all right. Tim?
I think we should close the public hearing. The board has voted to adopt this as a reference document tonight. If we choose to bring it up for further consideration and adoption to the master plan, we can renotice and have a public hearing.
Carl?
I agree.
Chair closes the public hearing. Thank you. So, end of subject for the moment. So what we have for our use is a document that we can use to consider in reviewing other projects as presented to the board at the present time. It's a useful tool, and I want to thank Jack for all the work that went into it.
And everybody else on the committee, too.
That was,
And I think,
it's a year worth of.
Yeah.
more than
Carl,
that.
were you on it?
Carl was a planning board rep.
Very briefly.
But
Yeah.
you know, I do thank you, because, I think you will find this good information over time.
Okay, so I mean, we'll find projects that this will apply to. And I think we will judiciously apply it to. School impact fee, groundwater, transportation impact fee.
Yes.
Ryan?
Let's do this in record speed, Brian. Let's go light speed on this one.
Try. Mr. Chair and members of the board, over the past several months, we've been working on, parallel to the school impact fee update, we've been working on this transportation impact fee update. And last meeting, I had given you a pretty detailed presentation on what that was basically changing. And I haven't changed anything, and Jack hasn't changed anything since then. We mostly were just looking for information as to whether or not to proceed with commercial impact fees for commercial businesses. And we got an opinion from the town attorney, which you all reviewed. We are waiting on a secondary opinion from the town attorney, but the basis of that is that it's gonna be okay if we don't include the commercial impact fee in this, because, you know, we also use the tool of offsite improvement fees, and those really are essentially doing the same thing as what an impact fee would do. And so at this point in time, rather than try to go through a long drawn-out question and possible adoption or not possible adoption of commercial, which is it's a big change compared to what we currently have.
Okay.
Right now, we have a residential impact fee in place for transportation for roads, and we have a recommended fee, and I think the recommendation is just to move forward with the updated report and to approve that one, and if we need to come back to the issue of commercial impact fees, then we do that at a later time.
I have one question, Brian. How is it that if we have a transportation impact fee, that we're able to get payments out of other residential developments in advance, such as for the roundabouts and other things that we've done in the past? And they're paying impact fees also? And we're already kind of determined in extracting from traffic studies and whatever, things that impact, like the roundabout at Pleasant Street. We got $150,000 from the Bog Road project.
No, we haven't got it.
Yet,
Not yet.
and you haven't got a single impact fee from that project either.
But I understand, but it's been assessed. Because he has to pay that impact fee to get a permit to build. And the same with the Worthley Hill. So we've always had impact fees relative to roads and whatever.
Those are off-site improvement fees, aren't they? They're not
No.
impact fees.
Those are impact fees.
It's an off-site improvement fee.
That's
Well,
right.
There's two different things.
Well, yeah, they're two different names. Same thing. It's
An off-site, it's an
Still
off-site
another
improvement.
form of taxation.
It's an off-site improvement assessment for the impact you're gonna have on on that, your percentage of the impact on that intersection.
Okay,
And that comes by way of the traffic study. So if they're gonna have a 3% increase in traffic in that intersection, they have to pay their proportionate share. And which in the case of Bog Road was much, much less than the 150,000 that was agreed upon. As I remember, Phil, was it something like 11,000?
I don't remember.
It was small
I
in
don't remember.
comparison.
I don't remember.
now I'll ask another question of the Highway Department, the Public Works Department. Every time we talk about sidewalks, there's always a comment made that we don't want sidewalks because we have to plow the sidewalks, yet in this matrix of determining this, we've got numerous sidewalk projects. And I'm wondering, even though they may show in the master plan, which they do, all those sidewalks are shown in the master plan, isn't that in the wrong direction that we keep hearing from the Public Works Department when it comes to sidewalks? Can you answer that one?
Well, all I can say is that you had a committee at one point that came up with those sidewalks as part of that plan. I don't know if that was part of the corridor plan or which plan those all came out of. But the Public Works is one opinion. I don't even know if Public Works was on that committee at that time. And I think we
Building
didn't
this one
feel
right
like
now.
we had the right to remove those from this
They're building
list.
that right now,
They're
2016.
projects that, you know, are on the plan for the, next, what is it, 6 years or so, we're trying to guesstimate, but to know if a project's actually gonna happen, we don't know until we have money for a certain year, we go to the board of selectmen with projects. I mean, so, again, those are kind of master planning projects, but they're never determined until, we have the money and we get, the authorization from the board to move forward.
Well, and I'll also say that DPW not wanting to plow a sidewalk isn't the only reason to not put one in. So I think, those being in the report, it's not necessarily, something that the town doesn't want.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, like I'll talk with the Village Green Gateway Streetscape, how is residential development impacted that we have to do that project? How can I explain to my neighbors that the subdivision next door is impacting the requirement that we do streetscape improvements?
I think it's the need for ways for people to get around. And, it's not always gonna be in a outlying area where that need is occurring.
Yes, but
You're improving the
but what does
capacity
their
of people to
building of a
move
house
place to place.
impact the requirement that should happen? How do you explain that to somebody who's building a house on Snook Road?
I think
How is it of a benefit to him, and why is his house or that subdivision require that to be done?
Because it's an across-the-board impact fee. It's not cited specifically for different residences.
Right,
You can't pick and choose.
I think you're looking at it, if you look at it in a different way, you're saying, what does his impact, okay? That house and the people in that house have an impact on the community. And whether or not, as Tim said, whether or not you make the improvement in this part of town, you make it in that part of town, or you make it in that part of town, it benefits the community.
I'm not saying it doesn't benefit, but I'm saying, why are we taxing somebody who wants to build to make that happen?
Because the town has adopted impact fees, you can
Because-
unadopt them.
They're using infrastructure that was paid for by everybody else, and they're impacting it, as was pointed out in the calculation of the impact fee, because you take, for the school, you take the facility, okay, that's built. Somebody comes in and goes into that school system. They're using a facility that was built by other people.
That's
They're
just,
paying a portion.
that's just life.
Oh, I'm just, this is, you know, the argument is presented to me by my neighbors. Why? What have I done that impacts Main Street? They don't understand that.
You drive through it?
They drive on the road, they don't walk on the sidewalk, and they don't,
Well,
they admire their trees, but why is it their responsibility to put the tree in? Yes, Tim?
Jim Raymond would always remind us that our master plan encourages sidewalks to encourage pedestrian traffic in town, to reduce vehicular traffic, to make it a more pedestrian-friendly environment in town. Now, if people can safely walk from one part of town to another on sidewalks, they might be more inclined to do that than to drive their car. And Jim Raymond would always remind that of us, that master plan detail, every time sidewalks ever came up.
Well, I'm not against sidewalks, I just don't see the need. But that's beside the point, that's me professionally. I don't see the need. I don't see the demand. In certain areas of town, yes. But not everywhere. Okay.
And that's
And I think-
exactly why when we had that project up the end of Worthley Hill Road, that originally had sections of sidewalk, and then another section of sidewalk, and then another section of sidewalk, I suggested that we take them out, because the plow would have to be picked up and taken to one place, picked up, taken to the next.
And I tell you, Phil, I totally disagreed with you then, because the neighborhoods were not on Worthley Hill. The neighborhoods were in the little roads that went in, that dead-ended, and where all the houses were stacked in there on that cluster subdivision. That's
And
where
they
the
were also
sidewalks,
on an angle like this.
that's where the sidewalks should have been.
Well, anyways, now that we've discussed our planning goals in terms of sidewalks, why don't we get Jack have the floor about impact fees for a second?
Yeah, let's,
I don't know
I don't think he's got
more
one.
to add.
Yeah. You don't wanna get in this mess.
I think you've hit on really some key issues. You know, there has to be a rational nexus. That's one of the legal tests. It has to be proportional, another legal test. And the impact fee methodology in here does that. It's your discretion as to what you want to include to have the fee pay for. Whether you want it sidewalks or streets or both, or, that's your discretion.
That's what
I
I'm getting
don't-
at.
I'm gonna stay out of that issue.
But what I'm getting at is this. This list of projects is up to us to determine what's in there.
We need some more information on that too, because I don't understand how the reduced costs happen on that. But I don't wanna do it tonight.
All right, so, my theory is this, if we have impact fees and we have specific projects, then somebody needs to be here to explain to us why, what, when. Because right now, this is like, to me, it's like a client coming to me and saying, this is my wish list, but I only got $10. And I have to tell them, you're not gonna get all this for $10. So let's not put it on there. Yes,
I think, like, I guess, we didn't feel as though we had the right to start, like, taking off all kinds of projects. I think that's why we, you know, I guess I feel like there was a committee developed that came up with these master planning projects. And, you know, let's say today, Brian and Jack and I come up with one thing, but in 2 years from now, 3 other people come with other projects. You know what I mean? That's a constantly changing thing, where if you there was a formal committee that came up with these projects, I just feel like we should probably stick to that versus every time we adopt it, we just make up our mind what's on here and what's not.
no. You make recommendations to what should be on there, and we have the right to take them off.
I would remind you that although all these projects, let's say, are listed on here,
Mm-hmm.
a key thing to note is that all the costs are adjusted, meaning, just like you brought up sidewalks, how you don't really get that. Well, there's a 10% factor. That means we only think 10% of the cost is really related to an impact fee. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like because you said, how does that benefit traffic, okay? And Tim brought up how Jim Raymond said it increases pedestrian traffic, which is less traffic on the roads and whatnot. Whereas like a road project is like 100%, okay? But like streetscape and sidewalk improvements is 10%. So it's not like we're taking 100% of a sidewalk project and tacking it onto you. It's only 10% of the estimated cost, just to explain that quickly.
Right, I understand that. So we have a right to take and determine what those are. You can make recommendations. The committee can make recommendations, but the committee is comprised of planning, DPW, and other interested organizations in the town. We as the board have the right to look at this list.
And if you feel like something should be removed from that, then by all means, please let us know. You know, we went through the list after.
Oh, it's shorter than it was when it started. I already know that, because I
And-
saved the first one.
Right, and, you know, we made our best attempt at taking things off that we knew weren't feasible to happen in the next 6 years. We looked at other projects and said, okay, we've got something over here on the CIP list that we are planning to do in the next 6 years, and this sidewalk project just happens to be right here next to that one as well, so we should be keeping that one in, because it'll probably end up getting done at the same time. But, you know,
Yeah, I
if
understand.
you see something on there that concerns you, then let us know, and, I mean, we can remove that, and that's not a big deal.
Well, right now, for instance, just as a question, we always have a road reclamation project, whatever, every year or something, that's an individualized in the CIP, right? It's in the CIP, right, Tim?
The road reconstruction program as a whole is in CIP,
Right, not the individual road.
not the individual roads.
Not the individual roads, and it's up to the Department of Public Works to determine prioritize and all that kind of good stuff. And I understand that. But I just don't understand all the numbers, that's all. Because under here, they're saying that of the 7 million for road reclamation, 40% of it is attributable to, on the adjusted cost.
And I think that's a fair assessment, Alan, because everybody uses the roads, not everybody uses the sidewalks. So proportionately, if they use 10% of impact fees towards sidewalks, that's a smaller proportion than 40% for the roads.
I understand, but when you think about the fact that you take and put 40% of this impact, this allocated fund is using to do that, but it represents the growth in houses or residential in this town is such a small factor to the total number of units that already exist in town.
What is our current impact fee for transportation side of it, Brian? 1,500?
No,
15.
it's 700 and.
And how many new houses
something
last
like
year?
that.
12,
12 times 700, we didn't build very much
no.
infrastructure for
No.
that kind of money.
No.
No, I mean, it's not a whole lot of money.
No, it's not.
There's no doubt about this. It's not a whole lot of money.
So let's not argue about it anymore.
There's an
I'm not
interesting
arguing about
case
it.
in Ormond Beach, Florida, for instance, that where the senior community of 55 plus filed a lawsuit, Aberdeen, I think, versus Florida, in the Florida Supreme Court, because they claimed that none of their impact fees that were paid to the school benefited them at all. So following through, I think, on what you're going to, it's possible that there are impact fees being paid by people that may not be receiving any benefit from that. And when you get a 55 and older community who have no children in those, but they're paying impact fees for the schools, you know, I know that it's been found unconstitutional in Florida.
I think there's a waiver of impact fees in the Goffstown right now for 55 and older and 62 and older. There's some kind of factor in there.
Okay.
There is,
already.
they only paid a non-school portion of the taxes.
Yeah.
But not an impact fee if they were to build a home in Goffstown.
I think they're excluded.
Who are excluded?
55 and older
As a project or as an individual?
as an individual,
As a housing unit.
as a housing unit.
Funny, because that house could be sold a year later to somebody with 7 kids.
That's true, but let's not, there's no gypsy in a wagon going around town buying a house and then selling it tomorrow to people with kids.
Are you sure about that?
There was 6,
I
7
hope
years
not.
ago.
I hope not. But anyways,
Okay, well,
so the transportation impact fee, what is it that you hope we do, Brian?
I hope that you adopt the fee as it's written in your report currently.
So it's an upgrade, it's a double.
It's,
triple.
it's an upgrade, it's, a double in some cases and a little bit more than double in other cases. I even have the report
Okay.
in front of me.
So I want to open a public hearing. Anybody from the public wishing to speak in reference to this impact fee? Seeing none? I'll close the public hearing. So, board resolution of remaining issues, any? Tim?
I don't think we should raise the impact fee. I think this, the building trade is being stifled as it is, and the more we raise the impact fees, the less people are gonna build houses and the less they're gonna invest in the community.
Simone?
Second that.
John?
second that.
Bill?
Matter of fact, I'd like to reduce it.
This
Increased
doesn't
growth.
include.
Well, Now,
Oh,
we can,
I thought I was speaking, but that's okay.
we
Well-
can.
You kinda got caught after John.
Phil?
My understanding is there's no change on the commercial?
There is no addition to commercial businesses, there's nothing there.
Right, and I don't have a problem with adopting this as it is. It doesn't affect commercial. We need to promote the commercial, and actually, it's a benefit to the community at this point if we try to put a little slowdown or keep down the residential growth, because it'll help, it's a benefit also to the school portion of our taxes.
Maybe we should increase our 55 residential growth.
Well,
and work
Well,
towards that.
we took the density bonus away, John.
yeah, we
Is
did.
the.
All right.
Only because, excuse me,
Yeah.
Alan, for 1 second, only
Yes.
because a developer took his density bonus in another community and built a whole bunch of housing, and then when couldn't sell them, went to the courts, and the court said, oh yeah, you don't have to sell to over 55, you can sell to anybody you want, and he sold them to families, and they filled that school up in that town, and the density bonus really hurt them because they had a lot more units and a lot more kids. So the density bonus went away as a result of that court action.
And I think if, in the commercial end of things, I think we probably could, in commercial developments, receive some benefit through off-site assessments. Equitably, like we've done in the past without having a commercial impact fee. That's my professional
One or the
opinion.
other, but not both.
And
Not both. Tim?
I'd like to make my argument not to raise it. For 20 houses, for 700 versus 1,500, the money is such a small amount that Public Works can't really do anything with that little tiny bit of money. So to raise the impact fee is not going to substantially help the community advance, especially when you're talking about $1 million for this project and $3 million for that project. So raising the impact fees, I do not think is a wise move. We're not gonna benefit, we're not gonna have any great benefit from raising the impact fees, on the school side or on the town side.
In that light, I think the Public Works Department does a pretty good job in allocating where the funds are spent. Don't get me wrong. I may argue about how much money they get to spend, and that's a technical matter, but I don't see them wasting money. Although I can find economics with any organization, including my own, if I look deep enough. That's my conversation, and I'm certainly not in favor of increasing the impact fees, because I'm a non-impact fee person to begin with. So, what's the board's pleasure?
Well, if I can just add one
Yeah.
thing, I think what you're gonna see, you're gonna start seeing a greater increase of multifamily in the community, and I think it's a mistake not to increase the residential impact fees.
Well,
Well, Phil, we,
I think in project specific, I'm not too concerned about 48 units on that back property in Penardville, to be quite honest with you. Because I don't think it's gonna happen.
the request is to double the density down there, Phil, as you may remember from the meeting. So all we have to do is deny it. Tell them you can build the 12 units, which you're allowed to under the regulations, and not build the double unit size units. If you're concerned about that becoming a problem, then we just vote not to allow the double allowance on the size of the buildings down there.
But anyways, that's a point that if they come back with an application, that's a big if.
I guess I'm looking at it perhaps as a little different than you two. I'm looking at it to put a slowdown on the residential. I would prefer to put a slowdown on a residential, even when the building boom, if building does increase, because I'd rather have the commercial increase to try to change the balance between the residential and the commercial in the community.
And you think you can accomplish that by raising
Well,
impact fees?
if it helps, that's great. That's great.
Well, I think our property taxes are gonna take care of that, according to the front page of the Goffstown News.
I didn't read that yet.
If we
I
lose
didn't want to.
Dunbarton and New Boston, we're looking at maybe up to a $4.45 increase, $4.45. And we already know that the trucks are old, and there's another thing about an aging fleet of increase another 14.3%. So
Yes, but John, remember now,
I think that's gonna discourage.
the tax rate is going up because we all received a nice little letter in the mail with our assessments, which were probably reduced based upon the current market trends.
Right.
And so when they go down, taxes go up. And I don't think it's a,
Sure it does.
well, yeah, they do.
Yeah, of course, you're right.
But the overall taxes may not go up, okay? So I haven't got my second half tax bill yet, so
Are we
I'm,
off topic right now?
So spending needs to be reduced, but
Are we
that's
off
different.
topic?
yeah, probably,
Okay.
but that's okay.
Throw
Just
that
in
out
5
there.
minutes, we're out of here. Anyways,
This is the same discussion a planning board had 20 years ago, so.
Hey, you wanna know something? My wife is doing a research on the town reports.
Yeah.
In 1949, the town report deemed the High Street intersection was a failed intersection.
Yeah.
And I'll bring that in and show it to you.
And we're working on that.
We're working on it.
1949, High Street was
We're
deemed a
working
failed
on it.
intersection.
And what was the biggest complaint in town? Traffic.
Too many horses.
Too many horses.
And back in
Not enough parking
1965,
spaces.
in 1965, the biggest thing was what was going on at Glen Lake Beach. All the hoodlums, they were called hoodlums, coming from out of town and swimming and leaving beer bottles at Glen Lake
don't
Beach.
have
That only
hoodlums in
changed,
Goffstown,
that only
okay.
changed after we fixed the waterfront 6
All right.
years ago.
So we do need a vote on this thing,
What are
or a
we voting?
motion or something.
To adopt that?
No, we can do anything we want. We can
No,
leave
is that-
them
is
as is, we can adopt the new, we can modify the numbers. Jack?
I've advised other towns when we do impact fees for them. You do have the right to do anything on these impact fees. And I know Brian likes to stick to the methodology, but due to the economy, you could say, well, we could reduce these, we could accept the updated methodology, but let's reduce the total fee by 25% or whatever you think might be reasonable to bring it back in line with, you know, the cost of growth and development in your community. So I just wanted to throw that out as you're considering motions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Can we review these on an annual basis if we choose to?
yes?
Yes.
But if you review it, requires somebody to do the mathematical analysis every year. Remember that.
Which
So
I
it's-
hired Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to do this time, and.
I thought they did all this on a grant.
Oh,
No,
this
we
is-
pay for it.
This is the town paying money for them to come in
We're
and
paying
do
money for this.
You paid us $5,000 to update your.
Okay.
Well, we're
Yeah,
gonna get that, we'll
I
get
hate
that back
to-
in impact fees, won't we?
Make a motion to reduce it by that.
Carl?
No, it's just.
I hate to
like-
spend money and then have the
I
board
liked what Jack had to
not-
say with adopting, accepting the methodology, but maybe keeping these fees, John had mentioned lowering them or just keeping them as they are right now, the 2005 figures?
Yes.
Keeping them at that level, but accepting the methodology. So in an annual time, or next year comes along, or let's not say next year, maybe 5 years from now, or whenever growth starts to come in, we can revisit
The
this.
methodology is
It's already in
determined,
place.
and we can move forward and change the math.
It's already the same methodology as what the 2005. It has been a little bit.
So, members of the board, what's your flavor here?
Oh, I don't mind adopting the methodology.
Let's do two motions then.
I'll make a motion, we adopt the, transportation impact fee methodology.
Is there a second?
Led by Southern New Hampshire Planning.
Second.
And,
Motion by Phil, seconded by Carl. Any discussion on that motion?
And have it part of the plan? No, it's not part of the master plan.
No.
No?
No.
No.
No, this is strictly, we're adopting the methodology for determining the transportation impact fee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I'm gonna oppose that also because I don't understand the methodology, but the motion still passes. So, now, in terms of the actual dollars and cents, let's not,
Well, can I make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman?
yes, sir, you
Since
may.
we're deferring everything until we have more members of the board here, I would suggest that we do it that too, and perhaps one of the things that we might put on the agenda, or I would request that we have put on the agenda, is a discussion as far as planning as where we want to see residential growth and commercial growth. I think it's all part of where we go with the impact fees, because I think that's something that we should do as a planning board.
Still up to the board. Someone wants to make a motion on these fees, they certainly can step forward.
We could make a motion to eliminate them for 1 year, let's say. We could make that motion?
Yes, you
That would
could.
be a whole different thing.
Huh?
To
No,
Eliminate the impact fee for a whole year?
we can reduce it to zero
For 1 year.
for 1 year.
We can make that motion.
Would that be covered under this? Yeah, I actually have to agree with Tim. I think that's a bad idea, number
I'm
one.
not saying it's a good idea, I'm just saying you
I'm
could.
just asking the question, can we do it?
Make a motion.
In
then.
theory, I'm saying you probably could.
It doesn't meet the proportionality and the fairness testing of, you know, who gets charged an impact fee and who doesn't. You know, every developer that comes in the door that's building a new house gets charged a fee, and if we cut a year out of that and say, well, anybody who's developing in this year gets a break, but anybody who doesn't,
No, because if you adopt it to zero, it stays zero until we take and modify it again. It's not just for, you can't put a date certain on it. It has to stay as zero until such time as modified or changed by this board.
if the board wants to cut out the transportation impact fee, then that's definitely something that they could consider.
I'll take any motion from the floor, because it's still wide open. Actually, I need to close the public hearing. It is now officially closed. Tim?
I'll make a motion to leave the subject of the fees up to the future meeting when we have a larger membership here to vote on it.
I'll second it.
Is there a second? Now, any discussion on that motion?
You want to continue it to a specific
No,
date?
Nope.
we have a motion on the floor. And I am not in favor of that motion. I want to make a decision tonight.
We haven't called it for a vote yet, so we can find out.
So any other further discussion on this motion before the floor? Seeing now, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. You didn't say anything, Simone. Yes or no?
Didn't give her time to think.
No.
Abstain?
Motion's defeated. So let's try again. So if someone won't make a motion,
I
I'll
make a motion to leave the impact fees as they are at the 2005 numbers.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to leave the impact fees as stated in table 1 of our report, which is single family at 786, single family attached at 405, multifamily at 482, and manufactured housing at 459. I'm reading from the table 1 of a summation given to us by Brian. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay, unopposed. Any abstentions? Chair votes in the affirmative. Motion passes, and the impact fee for transportation is to remain as it was in 2005.
Any other housekeeping items, Mr. Chair?
I'm just looking to see if I can still find my calendar of events here, to be honest with you. Just got the master plan up there.
Proposed zoning changes?
Yep.
And correspondence?
Last 2 weeks ago, I handed out a thing about proposed zoning changes to everyone to review.
You did what?
I handed out a list of proposed possible changes to the zoning ordinance.
I never got any of that.
I didn't get it.
That was at the meeting. I had handed it out to everyone right at the meeting, at the end of the meeting, and said, and rather than talk about this now, let's review this and talk about it in
You
a
do
couple
me an
weeks.
immense favor then.
And it's on the agenda to talk about.
Oh, I didn't say it wasn't on the agenda. I'm just saying,
I'll make a motion to postpone the zoning amendments till next meeting.
I want to make sure that we have enough time to do
Yeah.
whatever amendments we are gonna do,
yeah, we do.
Gonna talk about them tonight.
so.
Second.
There's a motion to what now?
Postpone the zoning amendment discussion till the next meeting.
Okay, can you re-email that to all the board members?
I can email it to everyone, yeah.
Including Simone? So you're gonna have to get her email address? Because I don't remember reading anything, and I
Neither do
usually
I.
diligently read everything. And I don't remember reading anything about zoning amendments, and I'll have to plead ignorance. I'm sorry, Brian.
I don't
I either
remember
threw it
either.
out with it or
might
mixed
have
it with
missed
the
that
project
meeting.
file
I
when I
missed the
picked
meeting on
things
the
up.
11th, Brian?
I had handed it out right at the very end and said, take it home and read through it and come back with some thoughts.
Because my last thing was to take the zoning ordinance,
I was
And
here
have
at the
every
last
member go
meeting, but I
through and
missed the meeting
highlight
before.
anything they wish to discuss.
Yeah, right after I had said that, Phil had brought up his question about the chicken thing that we need to talk
Not the
about.
chickens,
Rooster?
the
Well,
result
the-
of the,
The chickens and livestock ordinance that we passed last year
Yes?
that restricted people from being able to rent out their farm for use to
Or
someone
building
or building
in
or
the
whatever.
ag zone.
Because of the statement that,
Okay.
it had to be an owner-occupied kind
We
of
can discuss that.
scenario.
Okay. All right, so,
So,
Carl seconded the motion.
he did,
He did.
okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Last but not least, how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I don't know who said it,
That was
but
a
I'll
motion.
agree with it.
Jim and Carl.
And any discussion? Oh,
Isn't that what you
any
just
discussion?
I wrote the right name, just didn't say it.
Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned.
I don't know if I should